you give a lot of hope and you give a lot of I don't know, like positive advice to people in terms of dealing with elements of life that is applicable to stuff that beyond just the paranormal, but also the regular. And I found you a
Right.
very inspiring speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to agree with Brian. During your talk, you talked about hearing Lorraine speak and that presence that she has, and I've been privileged to see her speak a few times. And I have to say, there aren't a whole lot of people in my life I've seen who've got that. It's like even if you don't believe in the paranormal, this is somebody who's seen some things. You would be
Right.
among the few others.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that because one of the things about trying to work through the choice to share something that's controversial is, will it make a difference? Will you have any credibility in dealing with people? And having, I'm a fossil. I'm kind of old now, and growing up back in the '70s and '80s, this was the occult,
Don't
and
say that.
oftentimes it was something that you didn't talk about. So for me to share this experience, which was in many occasions horrifying, I thought that perhaps the best thing to do is focus on what people can learn from that. And I think that any conversation you have, whether it's with a person you love, whether it's a coworker, if the person understands you're coming from the heart, that even if you disagree on things, if you mean well, it seems to make the interaction more meaningful. And so often we just live through our lives and rush through things and don't really devote ourselves to stuff. And so I decided about 6, 7 years ago, if I was going to speak, I wouldn't have pie charts and notes and PowerPoints. Not that they're bad. I would speak from my heart because that's where I'm coming from. And I just think that no matter what people think about the paranormal, esoteric thought, everyone feels emotions over something. And so I really thank you for sharing your viewpoint of that because that's my goal, to have a positive impact on people.
I have to agree with you, and I mean, I'm of your school of thought as well. It's how my mentor Lou taught me to speak. It's like you don't do the notes, you don't do the big and flash. There's a time and a place for the big and the flashing, the powerpoints and all
Right.
that. But there's a power to somebody just standing up there and speaking from the heart.
Yeah. Well, if you have a PowerPoint, that's interesting. It gives you data, it gives you
Yeah,
information. And if you're studying that, that's helpful. If you're not sure what to make of it, if you're looking for your way, if your experience is different, it might not apply to you. But if someone talks with you and not at you, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think it also makes a difference being from the other side of Kevin, where I do a vampire lecture where I talk about the history of vampires in folklore around the world and
Right.
up through literature in the modern day and how they transition to the screen. So what I'm talking about is generally very not intellectual, but it's I'm mostly presenting facts and figures and stories and things like that. I'm not relating my own experiences. So for me, like I use notes. I don't do the full PowerPoint thing, but I could. But I do a much more sort of lecturely presentation. But I think it makes a difference as far as what you're presenting. Like if you're presenting information purely as a I'm telling you stuff that you may find interesting to learn and you might want to take notes. That's probably where notes and things help because you want specifics. When you're talking about and relating your personal experiences, that's where going without the notes and speaking just from the heart, really I think makes the difference.
Well, notes are good, especially as you say, when you talk about things that happened already, because it establishes a framework for understanding. And there's a difference between saying "No, no, 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 no," and asking the question as you read them. And saying, well, now here's something in 1763. And if the listeners understand that you value it, they probably will too.
Yeah.
agreed. I just like to make fun of Brian because it's like I I was gifted with a very good memory for that kind of information. So I could stand and do a lecture on a very historical fact based topic without referring to a sheaf of notes.
Right. That's where my memory for specific dates and names and stuff is terrible. So that's where I'm the guy that needs notes.
And in fairness, we're going to do in the coming weeks a special about Christmas and about the origins of various things.
You better believe I'm
And it's
notes for that.
Well, not just that. It's going to be the first time, possibly the only, but certainly the first time you guys are going to see me walk in with a set of notes.
Oh, okay.
Because there's an argument to be made about why we use December 25th. And keeping that all straight without a set of notes is beyond even my abilities, and I'll freely admit that.
Nice. That'll be fun. But so anyway, so I guess you started telling the story before. You might want to, because we probably have new listeners and stuff, you might want to tell kind of a basic version of your story again, just so everybody knows what the basics are, and then we can start asking questions.
Particularly so Brian can set up the really good.
Yeah,
we all agree was a great question.
I can give you that really good question again.
Right.
Once we get to that.
Yeah,
portion.
absolutely. Well, you know what? I think ironically, I'm going to start with notes.
Oh!
Notes have their place. We've all just acknowledged this.
See, the good thing is you're on the phone, so nobody would know if you had notes or not. You
Although you got to respect the honesty.
Yeah, I respect the honesty. You could have totally faked it and just said, no, I'm recalling all of this from memory.
So we hear the shuffle of
in my
papers.
hand.
Yeah.
You can't see this, but in my hand are notes. And these notes were written back on February 12th, 1985.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're called the C2D1 Journal Notes. Jeff Unger, who lived in my dorm, began to chronicle what was happening. And his thought process was this. If you write things down, it allows you to go back when the crisis is over and examine the data, your reaction to it, and what the corresponding actions were. Additionally, you can find maybe trends or patterns.
Yeah.
Was on a Thursday all the time? Was it 3 o'clock in the morning? So he was a big advocate of writing notes to record an experience.
Oh, I agree
And
completely
I needed
with him.
that. I needed that because when the haunting began, I was totally out of sorts. The first thing that I can recall happening, I wasn't looking for a haunting, so maybe think that before then, but the first thing I noticed was I was in my room working on a paper at college in Geneseo, which is a state school up by Rochester, New York. And I heard someone call my name, a whispering sound, like, Chris, with a long S. Now, it's college. Kids play jokes, there's fraternities, sororities, things like that. So my best guess is someone just trying to bother me, piss me off. And so I ignored it. And then I heard a second time. So I said, the door's open, just push it open. It's not locked. I'm like, I heard it a second time. I heard, Chris, I just open the door. It's not locked, dude. Open the door. I heard it a third time. So I got up, opened the door, and there was nobody there as far as I could see in a direction. Sometimes sound travels and bounces off a wall. So I look out the window on the second floor, and nothing's there. And so I thought, you know what? It's a joke. They're playing hit and run kind of thing, ring the doorbell. So I won't listen to them. If I can't hear them, it won't bother me. Control my environment. And so I put headphones on. I played Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55 in my headphones. And over the music, I heard the same thing, Chris. And I couldn't believe that somehow they had rigged the stereo, which I never used, and the headphones to make the same sound. I thought, well, that's really unusual. How could that possibly be?
It's one heck of a practical joke.
Right, because they had to have pre-knowledge of use of stereo, and that was the very first time I used that. It was my roommate, Paul, was asking. So I wouldn't have used that. So the ability for them to understand to do that would have been astronomical, those odds. Anyway, I came back to my room that night. My Paul began to yell, saying he was seeing something in the room. Like I was blocking his light with my arms or some shadows, and I was across the room 12 feet away, and I said to him, how am I doing that, Paul? And he just looked at me and said, I don't know, I got to get out of here. Something strange is going on. And he left the room, and there I was, and I was having some hot tamale candies, and next thing I know, I saw something or someone standing over my shoulder, and I looked over, and there was this person, and his legs were coming right through stereo, and he was looking at me. His head was tilted, and I threw the candy in the air. I screamed, and I ran out, and I ran into what was Jeff and Ed's room, and that's after a few moments. That's when Jeff said, "Listen, I'll record these things. I said, please write these things down because I think I'm losing my mind." And it was only about 10 days after Ed and Lorraine Warren had come to our college, and they had given a presentation. And as I mentioned when I saw you down in New Jersey, Lorraine was an amazing person to watch, and it didn't matter what you thought about the concept she was sharing, you knew she believed it and she was sincere about it. And it's nice to see someone believe what they say, and Ed was dynamic. And I had a very strange experience where after they get done speaking, if they showed their EVPs and their slides and things, they can go say hello to them. And I got in line to see them, and I got to the stage, and Lorraine looked at me and said, "I'm not going to shake your hand." And I looked around, and just who she's talking about was me. And she said, "I won't shake your hand because I don't want to know my future." I had no idea what that meant, knowing her future. And then Ed pushed me off the stage, basically, and in a safe but powerful way. And so it was a very strange thing where I never thought about these things, and now I'm being pushed off the stage by these celebrities on TV. I'm hearing these voices and seeing these ghosts. Like, what on earth is going on? And honestly, my first thought was, are there drugs? Is there drugs in my food? Is there a gas leak in the room? I mean, I didn't know what was happening because I didn't at first understand it was possible that ghosts existed.
Maybe it's a tumor.
You want to set up your question now, Brian? It seems like a good point.
Yeah, okay. I didn't want to necessarily derail the story, but I guess we can go off on a quick tangent since you mentioned it.
This just seems like a logical jumping off to that particular question.
All right, so the question I asked before was, Lorraine mentioned saying, I don't want to know my future. And in your initial story with the haunting, nothing like really came of that. But I asked, did something later ever, come of that? And you said yes, and you started to tell that story. So please,
right.
I'm really excited to hear this one because I wanted to, ever since the Para X convention, that question occurred to me, and I wanted to ask it to you and get the answer.
Well, no, as I mentioned to you, no one has ever asked you that question, so it was interesting to answer that, and then.
Yeah,
kidding.
And then exactly. Suddenly, ghosts start tearing apart our internet.
Oh, one of the times, the old days, one of the times we had Lorraine on the show. Oh, the things that happened that night.
Gremlins.
I heard Bitcoin was over.
Yeah.
But during the haunting itself, my roommate Paul, my friend Jeff, my friend Beth, my friend Linda, Ed, Judy, all of us, we were trying to understand what was happening. Was this really a ghost? And if it is, why is it here? And why does it always focus on Chris? And why is it attacking? So we were trying to problem solve on the fly because back then there really were no groups to go to like you have today, And so we tried to remember things. And one of the things that would happen to me sometimes during the haunting is that I would know things that I shouldn't know. An example would be that my roommate Paul, he lived about an hour from the college campus. And I had this thought, almost like a dream. And I said to him, "Paul, do you have a motorcycle?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have a motorcycle." And I said to him, "Do you ride your motorcycle, around your house?" "Sure, why?" I'm like, "Well, there's like this white house, and it's got this like a turret to it, and there in front of the house is a mailbox, and there's like an orange line. There's like you might have construction on the road." He goes, "I know what that is, yeah." I'm like, "Okay, but when the road goes past that house, it stops. You have to go left or right. You can't go straight." He goes, "Yeah, I know exactly what it is. I go there all the time." I'm like, "Right." I said, "Okay, there's gonna be a truck hitting the motorcycle there. What?" And he was so convinced that I was right about that because I knew like the house and the markings, and I even asked the people in the house. He goes, "Oh my God!" So Lorraine must have been onto something because that was something that freaked him out so much. He sold his motorcycle, and that's pretty amazing,
Yeah,
and,
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right,
Nice.
but like I said, I had no confidence. I just had this. It was like half awake, half asleep, kind of like daydream. It was so strange. And I remember not long after that, people began to call me the Ghost Boy because the papers came around and we had pictures of the ghost and people were talking about me and it just making these exaggerations. Though I had conversations with this thing, but he like best of friends me and the ghost, and I can control it, like kind of like a superhero. And so I wish that was the case. It'd be really cool, but that's what people began to start saying about this. And one of the things is that people would then say, "Well, that's garbage," or "Oh my gosh, if you're God, who am I?" That kind of thing. Big extreme reactions. And one guy came over and he's like big weightlifter guy. He must have been like 6'3", 270, and his girlfriend had been talking about me. She was impressed by all these ghost things, and of course, that's his girlfriend. He goes, "Oh, I think it's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. Tell me something about my future. Tell me something. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Just tell me something. Like, I don't know. So he's like, threatening me. So I said, give me your hand. So I held his hand. I said to him, okay, your heart has an irregular, you have a heart murmur. And he goes, nah, that's bullshit. I don't have a heart murmur. He came back hours later crying. He goes, okay, I do have a heart murmur. So, I mean, weird things like that, you know. So I never wanted to experiment with that, but sometimes I felt forced into it, you know, that people, people want to believe so much in something. And I thought at some point, if I could actually maybe give them some hope in that, maybe I could. But for the most part, there's no time for that. We're trying to survive the ghost. So that's Brian, that's an incredible question you asked, and I thank you for it.
No, that's awesome. That's very cool.
It's just a fascinating. It's like digesting the answer.
Yeah, no, it's really neat. I mean, you know, like I said, obviously it fills my head with visions of like Christopher Walken in the Dead Zone, but you know, it's not quite like that in real life. But,
Here's what's cooler. I mean, the movies always tend to make things a little faster, more dramatic, and awesome than real life. But it's interesting because sometimes the movies are based on real life, and that's the cool part, you know.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, you were you had like something done with what was it, Sci-Fi Channel? Was it like Paranormal Witness or something that you were on?
I've been very lucky. You know, even though I never wanted to talk about these things, people have always tried to encourage me to do so. You know, so the Sci-Fi Network, Mark Burnett makes Survivor. He wanted to get the best 6 ghost stories you could find and call it School Spirits at the colleges. So I called down to Manhattan and I filmed for NBC Sci-Fi. And when that television show hit the air, then everything changed. I mean, all of a sudden I have an agent. I'm talking over the country. I mean, I'm getting offered to write a book and advance cash things. Like, what the heck? So that changed my life. But I was scared of that because, you know, as a person, you take great pains to share yourself as you wish to. Here's who I am, and here's what I believe in. And you work hard to have credibility. And you might know 1,000 people that way. Yeah. You were in TV. Millions of people find out about you, and they can make you a fool. They can make you a total idiot because they want to sell movies. And so I was very scared to go on TV. And people said, go ahead. But it worked out very well. I fought very hard for my integrity, you know, and they did a good product. And then Please Talk With Me. It's a docudrama made about the haunting. Again, you know, people have always pushed me to share the book that I wrote, Throwing Evidence. That wasn't my idea. People said, look, you should write this. So I began to trust people over time that there's some value in sharing. And, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of odd that here's a young person, a teenager, who had no interest in this stuff. And now, 30-some-odd years later, I am the ghost boy, and I travel around every weekend talking about ghosts. This goes to show you, you know, you can be smart, you can be strong, fast, talented, and have a plan set up for yourself, step by step. But life happens in a way where you have to adjust sometimes. And the choices you make can have huge impact on your life, for better or for worse. I'm just very thankful that sharing these events, sharing this experience, has been positive and not negative.
Yeah. I mean, to get a little religious here, since I am a Christian, I believe that people have a purpose. They have something that they're called to do. And honestly, listening, both the power of how you speak and the incredible nature of what you've seen, I think you're meant to be doing this. This is why you have all these people coming to you, and they want you to speak at their events. They want you to be on TV. So you've got a message that people need to hear.
I was going to ask you a little bit of a smart-ass question.
Here we go.
What's this? Is it sci-fi or sci-fi?
Oh, stop.
It's sci-fi. I don't know what they pay me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter as long as they check.
As long as the check clears, it's all good.
They can call themselves whatever they want.
Because of my experience, I never watched scary movies. I didn't see any of the movies because it brought back memories. And this is not an exact comparison, but if someone is mugged or assaulted or abused or raped, if that gets on TV, that situation kind of like that, it brings back the memories you don't want to return to.
Well, like real soldiers generally don't like to watch war movies.
If it didn't happen to you, it's a concept. If it happened to you, it's an experience, and there's a very big difference between the two things. You know, people go off to war and think, I'm going to fight for freedom. I'm going to fight for democracy. I'm going to fix those ISIS people. And it's beautiful. It's strong. It's brave. But if you go there People are screaming. It's dark. Will I go home again? Kids with bombs trapped to their back. Your friend's blowing up. It's like, oh my God. And who's the enemy? Sometimes the reality is a lot different than the concept you had. And it could be even more meaningful, but it's very different. And so, for me, sharing an experience like this was really difficult. And with the sci-fi thing, like I said, I had grave reservations. I didn't say yes right away. And most people say, come on, go on TV. You'll get notoriety, you'll get a brand name, you'll get fame. But that wasn't my goal. I had a nice career. I have a family. I don't need that attention. And my experience was so negative back in those days, literally with suicides and attacks and bleeding and all these things. I wasn't sure it'd be a good idea. And luckily, I have some good friends. And over the years, I had some good friends who cared about me no matter what I was or how much money I had or, what I did. And I love people like that who like you for who you are and what you can do for them. And those friends that I trusted said to me, go for it. Yeah. Go for it because we believe in you. And I said, well, I believe in you, so I'll do it. So I've been reluctant every step of the way. But here's the ironic thing. I'm not stupid. I'm fairly smart. But it took trust other people to share these things. And I'm glad I did trust them because trust is a dangerous thing sometimes.
No, it is very brave of you to do that because, there are lots of people who have essentially ruined their life by speaking about one thing that happened to them, and it just destroys their life forever.
Especially when they become political pawns.
Well, or it just becomes controversial or something like that.
Looking at the paranormal community, how many people have gotten how much of a shitstorm, there's no other way of putting it, has the Lutz family gone through for sharing what happened to them?
Oh, yeah. So.
Oh, my gosh. You are so right about that. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to speak to Christopher and some of the folks involved in that, because sometimes we travel in the same circle due to the experience, And I have to tell you that, again, having grown up as a total skeptic in this, sometimes you look in someone's eyes and you learn something new.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, they would say things like, "Oh, of course she got attacked. Look what she's wearing." That's stupid. And not realizing that that's not fair. Yeah. Why can't you wear what she wants to wear? Does that deserve an attack? No, it doesn't. So sometimes as a person, you grow. You know what I mean? And sometimes by walking in someone else's shoes, it really opens your eyes. And over the last few years and sharing my experience, I've met so many people who come to me and say, can you please just listen to me? Can I please just share something? Can you just explain this? And wow, it's almost like I'm a doctor / friend / psychiatrist, but there's a need. And I always tell them, just be careful. I'm not an expert. I'm a survivor, so I don't have, there's no degree in this, so, but I said to them, but I will give you my best advice if you think it will help you. And sometimes people say things like, well, the non-Virginians from Luxor 16 came down the 14th spaceship. And to me it sounds like, wow, this is really strange. I'm uncomfortable. But, if that's reality for them, that's where they are. And listen, if it happened to me, I'm not to judge people because I'm like, well, who knows? I would have left it myself years ago. And so I always tell people, regardless of what I think about the facts they're giving me, is it the reaction to them? And I say to them, please listen, whatever you think is happening, like Brian would say, write things down. Make sure you eat every day, get some sleep at night, confide in someone. Because even if it's psychosis, if it's something like a drug interaction, that's the reality, and that's where they're living right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that sometimes people need help without having to be judgmental about it, and that's hard sometimes because
people just need somebody to listen to them.
Right, right, and I think that's important, and I think that plays a role too in my continued, decision to share this experience.
I'm betting you've had this experience too. How many people come up to you when they want to tell you their story, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "You're going to think I'm crazy," but
yeah,
every time I've heard that hundreds of times. And you know what? I've had people that'll come up to me and it's like, okay, you need to go back to your psychiatrist to get your medications up. Not that I would say that way to and there are people I will tell that to in a very nice and kind, listen to what they have to say. And I'll just say, this could be paranormal. but I would suggest you speak with your. And
Well, you know
inevitably,
what?
it's somebody with a psychiatrist already. So I'll just politely suggest that they speak to their psychiatrist.
Well, you know what I've noticed?
Just to consider both possibilities.
The way it usually falls out, the people that say you're going to think I'm crazy are generally the ones that have something legitimate.
Yeah.
It's the
people, ones that think that
the ones
this
that
is
are
normal.
Absolutely convinced that they're right. Those are the ones that generally need to seek
But
help.
the other thing I'll say is the people that think they're crazy. One, I would agree absolutely with Brian. Whenever ever that I can think of, anytime anybody's ever come to me and said, "You're going to think I'm crazy," but I can't remember a single time I thought they were crazy.
Well, because it means they're rational enough to at least have some doubt in their minds. You know?
Well, I think that's key because what they're saying to you is, it sounds odd, and I thought about it enough to understand it does sound impossible or odd. If they don't have that thought, then probably something's wrong because then they spend their judgment. There's no reality there. And if they say, well, this happens without a doubt, well, no one knows that. You can live with a person for 5 years and still not know anything about them. You know, so for somebody to say, well, this happened 10 minutes, 3 years ago, and here's something you have to know about it, well, be careful about that because we're not omniscient that way. There are things we don't know, and sometimes, look at Lorraine. When Lorraine Warren said it to me, I felt she was condemning me. I felt that she was embarrassing me. I was humiliated. And when I spoke to her daughter, Judy Spirit, last year, I don't know if I shared this with you not before, but
you were starting on it as well.
She goes, it's the ghost boy. My mom loves you. I'm like, no, it's somebody else. She does not love me. Let me tell you what happened. You know, somebody. But no, she's explaining to me her mom was like that. Her mom would read the room. She'd read audiences, and my aura was, she claimed, was so strong, the energy, that it distracted her, and she couldn't perform. She couldn't help people with like her response to them. So I got in the way, and she was afraid of me reading her, and then everything get bottled up. I had no idea it was actually respect. You know what I mean? And a compliment. And so it shows you that I wasn't 5, I was 19 years old. So it shows you we can carry these thoughts with us that seem so real to us. And we can think about them and analyze them and still be wrong because our perception is limited.
Absolutely.
And again, and even with, like I said, I've had people I think are a little off their meds. But the reality is still, the most helpful thing you can do most of the time is just listen to their story. And don't laugh, even if when I say it, it's like, with all due respect, consider this. It's not, you're crazy. I never call somebody crazy. Because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not qualified to call you crazy, for one. For another, I don't know.
Even if you're crazy, it doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There's certainly been cases where people had
things can happen to crazy people.
I've had friends and loved ones and clients who have had horrific, real spiritual experiences that also were mentally ill. The two were not mutually exclusive.
I agree, 100%.
And again, it's just give them somebody who's going to listen without being judgmental. And it does a wonder of good for everybody, whatever their problem is.
Yeah. And, as a caveat to what you're saying, too, is there are some people who want to share so quickly and so forcefully because they want either attention, notoriety, or money. You have to be careful of that, too, because people who get wealthy don't get wealthy because they want to. They create something. They share something. They do something people want to invest in. It makes them happy, and then that creates the wealth because of their skill set,
But sadly, people want the money. They don't want to put in the work.
Right, and that's a tough road to travel because it usually ends in despair,
Right. So, do you want to get back to your original story now that we've tangented rather nicely?
Yeah, it's a wonderful tangent. I'm loving talking to you.
Oh yeah, but
it's like the story is so important.
Yeah,
I want to get it out there.
Like going, hey, what happened with the ghost?
Because we got time. We can always get back into this later.
Me and Kevin have heard the story, so we know. But
I want to hear it again anyway.
The listening audience doesn't know what happened.
The guys in second and third just reflect on me. Oh wait, wrong story. Well, I guess I'll take us back to after I saw the ghost because that was a really tough thing for me. I was a nationally ranked runner back then, and I learned that by controlling your environment, it helped you. So you had a certain pace. You took your water at certain times. You learned to push the hills and run the downhills, run the tangents. And so the more you prepared yourself, the better the race would become for you. And I never panicked about things. But when I saw that thing, that ghost, for the first time in my life, I panicked. And when I ran to my friends' rooms down the hall, I didn't say I saw a ghost. I kept saying over and over again, I panicked. I panicked because that's worse. No matter what the thing in the room is, my reaction to it means I lost control. And then I can't handle things. And so it wasn't until after a number of minutes went by where they finally gathered me why I panicked. And I said to them, there's a ghost. And that presented problems for me because, number one, I didn't believe they existed. And number two, I didn't know how to deal with something that I didn't know existed. And luckily, Jeff began to record these things. And I had a small group of friends around me, tight friends, who even though they didn't know what was going on, they knew something was happening, and that I was seeing things. And that gave me the opportunity to share in a very quiet way. But we didn't use the word ghost ever. We would say, how are things in C2D1? And it was the C building, the second floor, the D quad and first room. It sounds like it's Star Wars droid kind of,
that's next week.
Yeah, I wondered about the name, but that's good for
that's why because we said ghost, we go what? So if we say C2D1, they think whatever that is. It's boring. It's geek talk, and that kept our conversations on the side and without drawing too much attention to ourselves. But the first 2 days were so scary. I would be sleeping in my bed and I'd wake up and the face of this thing would be about 5 inches from my face, looking at me, breathing in my breath in my mouth, and oh my God, and my face would be numb. My eye would open up and I'd scream. I would throw things at it. It would go right through it, hit the wall and bounce off the wall. It would rub my foot. I remember reading in the past about different people on the run, like Omar Gaddafi would sleep in tents around Libya and just change his location. For a while there, before Pakistan, Bin Laden would go from place to place and hide because you want to live. And so I would sleep in different spots across the dorm so the thing couldn't find me right away. I had time to rest for it, eventually would find me. And I would sleep by a vending machine because vending machines give you light. Mm-hmm. I remember if the power goes on, it would go make it sound like, and it can make you awake again, make sure you're not sleeping too long. People use the vending machine so people can see in case something happens. So I remember sleeping all different locations to minimize the chance it would find me because it was always looking for me. And generally speaking, it was in my room. But one of the scariest things that happened before the bad stuff happened was that I was lying in my bed and my pillow was pulled out from under my head forcefully. And behind me was a wall. There's nothing but a wall there. And I looked up and the pillow was, and this is hard for me to share without sounding like I have no credibility, but it was floating. And I said, what? And so I pulled my pillow back and I couldn't move it. So I wrapped my toes around the mattress on the bottom and almost like a squat thrust. I tried to pull the pillow back toward me and I couldn't move it. And I said, give me back my pillow. My roommate, Paul, was asleep. He said, what are you doing? I'm like, Paul, if you're my friend, you will look right now. He goes, I don't want to. I said, please, if you're my friend. He looked over. He saw me fighting for nothing with his pillow. And he said to me, no one should ever have to see what I'm seeing right now. And after that moment, I remember Lorraine Warren saying at the symposium, she said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave me alone. And so I said that and it dropped. I'm like, oh my God. But that's when we realized we had to get help because I couldn't sleep. And if you can't sleep, you can't heal. Your brain can't rest. And years later, my roommate fled, by the way. My roommate left the college. He left. I have not seen him since March of that year. A researcher found him, and Alan Lewis found him 9 years after the haunting, 1994. And he asked him what he had seen. And after Paul verified I was okay and I survived it, he said one of the scariest things was Chris fighting for his pillow in midair, just floating there. And Alan asked him, why'd you leave? And he said, because the ghost told me, leave Chris alone twice. Clear as day. I wasn't waiting for a third time. So it's amazing, when you have other people, 10 years, 9 years later saying these things, because even looking back myself, like, what on earth? And I don't share everything with the haunting because some people come into it with a potential belief in these things. And if you say too many things, they're like, nah, that's just made up. And so I'm very careful what I share initially because I don't want to push people away. People are willing to believe you hear a voice. They're willing to you might see something. Things floating, I don't know. And so those things I don't usually talk about, but that's one of the things that drove myself and Paul to a priest. Because in the movies, like The Exorcist and things like that, what do? you get a priest. And so Paul and I went to the Catholic Church because that's what you do. That's what they always do. And we actually were hooked up with a gentleman named Father Charlie Manning. Paul and I, my roommate, took Jeff's notes to the priest, and he read them. And he read them for about 40 minutes. And when he was done reading them, he said to us, I believe you. I'm going to help. And oh my gosh, just to have someone, an adult, a position of authority, say, I believe you want to help, it felt so good to us that maybe there's a possibility this will end. And he said to us, I'll be there in 2 days. I'll be there Wednesday, and I'll come over, and I'll fix your stereo. And I looked at him. I had no seat to begin with. I'm like, what? The stereo is not, what are you talking about? He was so smart. He said, listen, I'm not going to knock on the door to the doorman and say, is the ghost here?
I'm here
like,
for the ghost.
40 people will be there showing up with cameras. But he said, listen, you want your privacy? I read in the notes that the ghost appeared in the stereo and came out of the stereo. So I will come to fix your stereo. I'm like, oh, this guy is so smart. Because in the movies, the priest is like 7 years old. He's like 9 feet tall. His hair shines gold. Like, and they were just, he's crazy cool.
The
right?
black fedora, the trench coat, silhouetted in the light.
And this priest looked like a bass player from a 70s band. I'm like, this is not going to work. He's like the Gorn in the red shirt. So but he was amazing. He was amazing. And when he got there 2 days later, Jeff said, "Can I be here for this?" And he said, "No, this is between me and Chris." And Paul had gone home. He didn't want any part of this. He just wanted to get home. And he told us you do that. And he came in there. He put like this oil from this container. Made a cross on my forehead. He put candles out and across the room. He had holy water. He did the holy water sprayed around the room. And then he had his Bible. He read these prayers. And he did a ceremony. And I didn't know the difference between a blessing, an exorcism, whatever it was. He did the ceremony. And then it was over because he stopped talking. And in the movies, there's like blood and green stuff and earthquakes.
Your head spinning around.
It was just a ceremony, but it's kind of cool. And then I said to him, am I okay? He goes, we're good. I said, can I get back in the room? Can I get back? Because I remember when fear was being attacked. I said, only if you invite it back in. And I said, well, we're good. I will not invite it back in. And he said to me, just so you know, certain people have certain gifts. And this might be a gift that you have. And you have to understand that it might always be with you. I thought, oh, there goes Lorraine again, right? There's over the course of 20 people keep telling me, but I don't want to hear. It's like, no, I just pretend. But here's the coolest thing about that. After he left, for the next few days, things stopped. There were no shadows, no talking, no images, nothing blowing on the room. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. And I knew it wasn't psychosomatic because those things were physical in nature. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can create a feeling in my mind, but I can't create things moving around the room. And I should mention that when Jeff found out the priest was going to come to bless the room, he wanted to get evidence beforehand in case the priest was successful. He wanted to be able to show things. And there's a photograph of me with my arms outstretched. This thing would create these huge, strong, freezing cold whirlwinds, and the room would blow papers around the room and stuff. And there's a picture of me with my shirt like blowing back and things. And he took that picture just so we would have some kind of evidence in case that, you ever wanted to someday. And during that situation, he'd asked me if I could talk to this thing, and I was kind of scared to, and that's when we got the very first picture of this thing above my bed. So it was bizarre, but I was thankful that the priest came and did the blessing because as far as I understood, it was over. My life was back to normal. What I didn't understand, though, is that sometimes blessings calm things down. Sometimes they heat things up. And within 4 days, the vicious, violent, physical attacks began to occur.
Yeah, it's like, Chris, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is like all of a sudden everything's quiet.
It seemed like you were about to pause for a commercial break or something.
That was like Liberty Mutual, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and we'll hear about those attacks next when we, return.
But first, take a moment to talk about exorcisms are on.
But first, Mountain Dew.
I'm captivated. I think might be a good time to put out the phone number.
Yeah, let's, that'd be good for calling.
Let's see, 609-807-2492. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
609-807-2492. You can call in, ask Chris a question, ask us a question.
Yes, please.
we're not done by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a good logical stopping.
No, the really scary stuff is still coming.
I have to say I've been doing this for a while now. This is among I don't do a lot of the ghost cases. I do more usually the very violent, often demonic cases. And
Right.
this is clearly not. This isn't a demonic case, but it's blow away for levels of human spirit, and even for a demonic spirit case, this would be a very remarkable case.
Well, depending on who you ask, because you know how we have different opinions on things as people, everything from food to clothing style to politics. Over the years, and even before I began talking about this myself, many people in the paranormal and people in the scientific field looked at the case, and they came to conclusions that oftentimes were different. Some people said this was a possession attempt. Other people said that this was some kind of lost soul. Other people, so there are so many possibilities of what it could have been that by the time I began talking about it, decades later, there are already some established theories about that. And I guess the cool thing is that when myself and Jeff and Beth and everyone came forward, and Judy and Linda, then people had these theories, then begin to apply their theory and see if it matched the details as it became known. So it's one of those rare things by chance where people can get a theory and then later on find some, first person or first source material to say, I wonder. So people still argue and discuss and debate what it could have been: oppression, possession, etc.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating, and everything from John Zaffis to Tim Shaw. I mean, almost everyone has a different theory about it. Yeah.
Well, John's an old colleague of mine.
Yeah, he's been good to me. He was one of the very first people to tell people that, hey, listen, pay attention. There's something here. You haven't heard of this guy for 20 years, but I'm telling you, it's legit. And he was been a great friend to me, a great resource. I can say nothing bad, even if I wanted to, about John Zaffis. And just like anybody else, any sports person, any politician, any person in the neighborhood, there are detractors. I love the guy.
I'll say this: my mentor Lou Gentili knew John very, very well. And John, as well as his uncle Ed, was a mentor for Lou.
Yes.
I was lucky enough to go out on a couple of cases with John. Back when I did co-host the Lou Gentili show, we had him on for a while, almost every week. He is, I can't say I love everything he's ever done. He's human. He makes mistakes like the rest of us. But I have the utmost respect for the man and the work that he does.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that makes sense from what you were saying as to why your particular case is so regarded, and why people are so interested in approaching you, is I think because unlike a lot of cases, yours does have a lot of corroborating witnesses. It has evidence.
It's so well documented.
It's documented, and it's interesting the fact that you were a complete skeptic and not somebody that was interested in this adds weight to it. It's that classic story. A guy who already believed in God, who experiences a miracle, isn't as interesting as the guy who's an atheist that experiences a miracle and turns around. It's like just sort of
because there could be predisposal to it. Correct? They can
exactly.
themselves to it, which potentially can eliminate some of the credibility of the experience, and that's probably true. And I don't usually get defensive about anything because my concern is believing me. It's rather they look at the advice that could help them.
Right.
If I do find myself very rarely getting too much defensive, what I do is I tell them, listen, you're right. Most of these ghost stories involve two kids in the basement when they're 9 years old, or two kids out drinking in the parking lot. Where I get it, and I said I'm very lucky, and I'm very lucky because in 2015 the college sponsored a haunting symposium at the college, and we had 10 people there who had been involved in the haunting. And it's interesting because we got to go back, all of us, and recall things. And when you're involved in a crisis, you don't always have time to analyze everything. You're just on the move. But we all had 30 years to think on our own. And except for Jeff and I, and we were still a 10-year gap, there was no conversation between us. And to go back 30 years later, and the most amazing part for me, I feel so blessed, it turns out that each of us have certain pieces of a puzzle. Not the whole thing. And each person there could present more pieces. And suddenly the puzzle fills in to greater detail than if it's been by myself.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a great gift to say, so that's why you said that. That's why I loved it. And when you go through a trauma like that, even if you don't like somebody, you love them because you survive with them. You look at their strengths. You look at the good things they've done. And going through trauma with someone, like going to war in a sense, or,
Exactly.
it really bonds you. And so even if it's been 30 years, it felt like, well, we're grayer and fatter, but it felt like nothing had changed. And what a blessing it is to be able to go back home. It almost never happens. So if you ever hear joy in my voice, it's sincere. I'm so blessed to go back and talk about these things in a safe zone,
Yeah. It's just you have an amazing and very powerful story. This is the reason why I first heard about you and I'd like to get an interview with him. And then when I listened to you speak, it's like I want an interview with this guy now.
We need him on the show.
Well, you made a most impression on me. You both did, because when you were talking with me, you weren't just polite, you were kind, and I always liked that. And over the years, I've gotten the sense of what people want sometimes. And this is not casting aspersions. Some people just want an autograph. That's fine. Some people just want to say they talk to me.
Yeah.
But when I meet people who would like to actually discuss things, I like that. You know why? Selfishly helps me. I learn more that way. And if you remember, I had something with me, and I gave it to you because I realized.
Oh, I remember vividly.
Oh, God.
And that was sincere. I really want to say thank you without just saying the words, so you knew I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, that made a real impression on me and Kevin. I mean, it was the first time Kevin literally, you weren't there.
I was in tears.
Kevin teared up afterwards when he was looking at it, and it meant so much to him. And I thought, and I was just like, wow, what a great guy. what a nice thing to do for somebody that you just met.
No, meeting Ed and seeing him lecture way back in '94 when I was in college myself was a profound impact in me going from being a kid interested in finding ghosts to where I am now. So to have that memento of him. And I still have it. I have it in a special place, so don't forget it. I look at it. I see it almost every day.
Of course,
I'm glad. I'm glad that you enjoy that. And part of life is hoarding. Unfortunately, I like to hoard things. You're like, I got this. But then I realize, you know what? Sometimes somebody else will find more value than you will in it. And let's say, for example, I'm 9 years old. I go to a baseball stadium. I get someone's autograph, a baseball player. That's fun, right?
Yeah.
Then I find out my neighbor, that's his hero. Well, I'm going to give him that autograph because even though I like it, it means more to him. And that creates more memories, more friendships. And I like things like that. When I was suffering through this haunting, people were usually kind to me. Not everyone, but most were. And they spent time with me. They talked with me. And I learned the value of listening. I learned the value of sharing. Because as an athlete, which is what I was, you compete. You have to be the best. You have to get up on somebody. You have to always outperform. It's win-win. And then I realized it's not about winning all the time. It's about enjoying. It's about experiencing. And like I said, it was very humbling to go through this and not know if I would even live through it, not know if I was capable, not understanding my world. And it's so humbling. I was lucky. I had two parents, and they stayed with the family. I knew my mom and my dad, and they loved me. Not everyone has that. I was lucky that my parents, gave me these values. If you need it, we'll give it to you. If you want it, earn it. I didn't always appreciate it, but I was lucky. But sometimes if you're always lucky, you don't know pain. You don't know despair. You don't know fear. And I think that I wish it never happened, but that did happen, I'm thankful I learned humility. I'm thankful I learned to be grateful, because those are actually better skill sets and personality traits than overconfidence and achievement, because then you can relate to people and there's more of a bond or friendship long term rather than just a moment.
Yeah, but I wanted to say, hey, it's kind of amazing and how people can relate to things. Like I've seen Kevin lecture several times about the paranormal before something actually happened to me, and it's funny how even though you were told exactly what to do, you don't think of it right away. and you're just like,
True.
ah, crap.
Well,
Yeah.
Chris, as you know, it's like when you're actually caught in the experience, especially when you're caught, even Amisha, even before you had your experience, you believed in this kind of thing. But even more so for you, Chris, with not having been a believer, then all of a sudden you're struck in the face by something your worldview doesn't prepare you for.
Yes, exactly right. And that's not always comfortable. Sometimes you have a certain belief system and it always works for you. Then suddenly it doesn't. And questioning oneself can be very, very disconcerting, and there are some people, and you know them, they refuse to change any idea they have.
Mm-hmm.
This is this, and that is that. And I know it brings them comfort, and that's okay if they want that, but sometimes growth is more important. You know what I'm saying? And so, to each their own. But I'm telling you, I learned big time, because I used to run a mile in 4:27. That's pretty fast. I was in great, great shape, but I couldn't run from the ghost. And I went from being known as a fast runner to the kid who ran from the ghost. I went from being an athlete to a victim. And I didn't like that. And I don't like being called the ghost boy. No, I'm not the ghost boy. What even is that? But people call me that. And it was weird. Yeah. It hurt my feelings as a teenager to be defined by somebody else. No, this is what you are. And it's not the same thing as, like, say, Nazi Germany with the gold stars, the pink triangles. Not the same. But on a small scale, it is, because someone's saying, this is what you are, too bad. And it's frustrating people define you against your will. And so here I am trying to see what this thing in this room is. And meanwhile, people are now calling me this. And then the paper calls you that. All of a sudden, that's what I am. And I remember Leonard Nimoy, Spock. Leonard Nimoy, great actor, right? And he wrote a book saying, I am not Spock. Everyone went, boo, yes you are, because he was. Then he wrote a second book, I am Spock. And so by the time I began speaking about this experience around 2011, you're talking 26 years later, I realized that people want to know about the ghost by Geneseo. And I might as well embrace it, because that's how people recognize me. And it's a small consolation to pay if what I can do then is to share in positive ways. So I accepted I'd be called that the rest of my life. But in return, though, I've made great friends, had great experiences, and hopefully been a positive force in people's lives.
I believe we have a caller.
That's cool. Oh, do we have our
Yes,
first?
we have a caller.
Our first caller. Yay!
Hello, you are live on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
So who's this?
This is Anthony.
Hello, Anthony.
Welcome.
Hello.
Did you have a question?
Well, I've actually met Chris in person and gone through the lecture a few times with him about the C2D1 hauntings. I was actually going to tell Chris something, but if he remembers up at the Pointed Hat, the old building.
Yes. And Port Jervis.
Yes. The old building where you did the session at.
Yeah.
I don't know if Charles ever told you, but we actually had an experience to where a female entity had thrown boxes and objects at Charles and then proceeded to pick me up and throw me 6 feet backwards into a
And you're a big guy, right? For our corporate, you're a big guy.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it actually picked me up and threw me 6 feet backwards into a wall. It sliced me 3 lines across my chest and then 5 on my arm to the point I was dripping blood.
That's
pretty extreme. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah,
that was actually in the basement of the old structure.
Right. Because they moved that store now, right? They moved it?
Yes, it's down on Front Street now.
So maybe you're safe now in a new location.
That's a pretty extreme experience. Yeah, I'm hoping for your sake that you're safe.
She was mad.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes with the territory because we did a lot of cleansings and stuff like that. Houses where entities would follow us and other stuff.
Anthony, I remember now very clearly. I talked to you last year at the Bazaar Haunted Flea Market, and then I talked to you this past spring. I remember everything's come back to me now. That's exactly right. And I'm telling your listeners out there, he's a big dude. He's not like me. He's a big dude. Anything from that far.
They know me.
That's like hope.
I was at Halloween in the Catskills. They remember me. I was Mr. Indestructible.
That's
Oh,
it.
yes,
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we're friends on Facebook.
Thanks for
Yeah,
calling in.
they
Yeah,
they
it's
want
nice
to
to
get
hear
hit with
from you.
steel chairs and glass picture frames and everything else across that.
Hit with the pumpkin.
I'm a big boy.
Nice. Yeah, I remember.
Wow.
You.
Yeah, I remember you quite clearly. Good,
Yeah,
good
yeah,
to have
he
you
is-
call in.
He is a big guy. Chris is not kidding.
But yes, I can tell you though that I mean, like I remember, I still have the book and the movie and everything else that Chris had gave me. Which, if you have not seen the C2D1 movie that they made, the documentary and stuff, you need to watch it. It is intense.
Oh, nice. That should
Thank
be-
you,
I'm going to be looking into this.
Anthony.
He
Thank
will.
you so
I
much, Anthony.
will be
I
way
really
too
appreciate
scared.
Yeah, Anthony, you are officially our first caller. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for calling in.
Congratulations.
Sweet.
You win
But
absolutely
yeah, I mean,
nothing.
I'm all,
but,
I'm all
it's
for it
awesome.
because I was actually, when I did the Pointed Hat for a while, I was actually one of the people that came in and was cleansings and blessings. I was also one of two individuals that worked with the Catholic Church on exorcisms. We did 3 in the area. They will neither confirm nor deny that statement, but I can tell you for a fact
That's the
that
Catholic Church
the
for you.
Pointed Hat was a part of 3 exorcisms in Orange County.
Nice.
Wow.
Well, he's a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yes,
and,
he is.
thank you for thinking of me, Anthony. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah.
You're a good man. You know, I really
Thanks
mean
for
that.
calling in.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Chris is actually, it's if you know anything about the C2D one, he's actually one of the few legit photos that I've seen
Yeah, we've seen.
of an actual captured paranormal entity of sort, basically in the photo, to where it's not Photoshop, it's not fake. Also having an actual recording of a voice before like EMF and everything else was even thought of or popular. You know, that's why I try
It's
to
weird,
tell people
right?
when I see it. He's the real deal.
Anthony.
Like there's
Oh, yeah. I've seen the picture he brings with him to the
Anthony, it's
lecture.
weird because back then, all we had was a 35mm camera with like 5 exposures left in it and a cassette recorder. But the cool thing about that is you really couldn't do much back then to change it around. There were no apps and things. So even though it's so old school and like archaic, in a way it's better because
Yeah.
it's more authentic.
It
You know?
works to its advantage.
There's a couple of ways to mess with a photograph back then, but it's not like, I mean,
Not
nowadays,
very obvious.
anybody with a computer can screw with a photograph and make it a ghost
Right.
photograph. Somebody was saying the other day to me that, like, there's almost a button on your Photoshop now to add the UFO to your photograph.
Yeah, yeah, you can do
Isn't
that.
that strange? Well, I can tell you that
but you-
when the pictures were taken, back in those days, you had 2 options. You sent them away to Rhode Island and got 4x6 prints, double prints, and got it back 2 weeks later, or you went to like an expensive place like Photomat, you know, and it's like in the parking lot of the mall.
I remember
And
those.
Yeah, I
Jeff was
remember
so
as well.
intrigued. Remember those? He was so intrigued he wanted to get rid, so he spent a lot of money, and he went up that day to get them and brought them back. He's like, "Oh my God, look at this!" And he went to the Milne Library on the campus,
Mhm.
got a human anatomy book, and he started backing the bones up. Like, "Oh my gosh," you know. And that was, I didn't want to see it though because, hey, listen, I knew it was there. I don't know where proof of
You've
it.
seen
And
it in real
I
life. You don't
usually-
need a photograph.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't think it's kind of like I used that example. If you think that your girlfriend or boyfriend is cheating on you, you don't want to see the pictures. I mean, even if they exist, like no, I'm good because I'm gonna punch someone now. You know,
Yeah.
so you want to get beyond it. So while people were gathering evidence around me, ironically, I didn't want it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I will have to admit, though, there is one part in the documentary, I feel bad, but there is one part in the documentary I did laugh, which was the part when Chris is fighting with the blanket and pillow with the entity, trying to pull it away.
I would imagine as
Right.
terrifying in real life as that would be, to watch it, it would look kind of like comedy.
Oh,
I mean,
real life, I'd probably be scared to death. As big as I am,
in
I'd be
real-
crying.
Oh yeah, but watching somebody fight with a pillow is kind of funny.
Like you're fighting with the ghost. The ghost is a blanket hog.
Yeah.
I absolutely, and I don't mean to demean it.
It's like
But
if you let go of
there's
the pillow,
humor
it'll,
there.
like the ghost fall backwards.
It's like Abbott Costello meets the Wolfman or something. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if they need to re-release it or what, because I'm trying to look up the movie and it seems to be hard to find. And I tried Amazon, I'm trying Google Shopping, and it's absolutely not coming up.
Huh.
Oh, it's called Please Talk with Me.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up, and it's
Okay.
absolutely not coming up. First hit result in the Google Shopping is actually Curse of Chucky.
Oh, good heavens.
Which is an entirely different story.
You might,
Yeah.
Is it on Amazon, maybe?
She checked.
No, apparently
Yeah,
not.
I-
Maybe,
Well,
maybe
no, because
Sci-Fi's
here's the thing.
website.
When you put something into film festivals and theater and things for awards and stuff, it
Mhm.
doesn't go to sale right away usually. And
True.
so what's happening now is they just recorded Linda Fox, who was one of the girls in the dorm room,
Mhm.
and now Craig Norris is the one that told me to talk to the ghost. So they're still adjusting it. So that will come out again
Oh, okay.
next year
I got
with the added witnesses. I still have. I mean, I bring with me some of the copies of the film because that's from the first run from a while back. You know, I can still show that and sell that.
Oh,
But
okay.
next year you'll see the final release of it with even more witnesses and the priest talking and things. Because when they first began making that documentary, we couldn't find where the priest was. We couldn't. People that were involved were kind of. I don't know if I want to talk about this. I'm not
Yeah.
sure yet. And so we had to kind of pare it down to its essence. We don't want to fake things. We have to make it true. But if all of a sudden 8 witnesses aren't there, you only have so much to work with. But over the past few years, reaching out to people, that symposium and Geneseo, now there's like 8 people to talk, and so you'll see that be released soon.
Okay.
If people do want a copy of that movie, I bring them with me to my events, or they can go to clear throat, www.ptwmthefilm.com, and there they can purchase it there if they'd like to.
Okay, great. And maybe we can have you back on when
I was just about to
when
say,
the new version gets
when
released.
the new version's released, please, we'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, you can promote it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we can bring in, if you want, we can bring in the director or the producer or those involved. Cause
That would be
We'll be
nice.
happy to have anybody who wants to talk to
Oh,
us.
hell
That would be amazing.
I don't do anything alone. I mean, I'm here because of my friends. I mean, without my friends, people that I trusted and good coworkers and associates, I'm not here. There is no Ghost Boy. There is no Chris doing this without people who believed in me, good, decent people.
Which I wanted to ask you, from a psychological standpoint, would you say that owning up to the Ghost Boy title gave you a little bit of power back?
I think it's healing. You're right, because even if you don't want to make the choice, just making a choice sometimes can give you power. You know what I mean by that? And so I thought it was a risk because, come on, this guy's in his 40, 50 years old. He's a ghost boy, can be a ghost man, So, but the interesting thing was the very first time I spoke in public was at the college. It was 25 years later, and I went to speak, and I figured there'd be like 8 people there. There were hundreds of people. There were hundreds. And there I was, where Ed and Lorraine Warren talked when I was a kid. Right there, I remember telling Jeff in the audience, I could never do that in a million years, what they're doing to that ghost. And there I was, ironically, doing
In the same
I
spot.
wonder if there's someone in there,
Nice.
right? Thinking that life, how it's weird. Life has sometimes cycles in it. In any event, when I got done speaking, a gentleman named Tim Shaw was in the audience in the front row. And Tim Shaw, he's a spiritualist minister. He had a radio show on Para X for a while. He's a published author. He had studied this haunting for like 20 years, and he had just gotten out of surgery, cancer surgery. He couldn't even drive yet. He had his friend drive him to the symposium. When I got there, I said to him, Chris, don't stop talking. People need to hear this. No, it's real. And the ghost boy was a real thing. And because he said that, I kept talking.
Nice.
The story you have to tell is, this is why I wanted to have you on. This is, you have a story that people need to hear.
Of course, I have to ask: Did you knock anybody off the stage? just for like synchronicity's sake, like just pick somebody at random and like body check them.
No one's ever asked that question before either.
There we go. I'm two for two.
Piece of this little insight here. The night before we spoke, Jeff and I were invited back to the college, and they put us up for free because we're speaking there.
Yeah.
They put us in Erie Hall.
What the heck? And Dean, of course, just walked out. Disconnect. Hello?
Hello?
Chris? Hello?
Anybody still there?
Why don't you okay, Beth, why don't you disconnect the call and we can hopefully have him call back?
Or can you call him?
Or call him?
Everything's still connected.
I know, but since clearly the call's
Obviously,
gone out,
the audio's
disconnect and try calling back. Try calling him back, if we can.
Alright.
Once again, as soon as I ask a cool question.
I'm telling you, something doesn't want him to be able to speak, which is all the more reason I want to have him on when I tell a story. It's like, no.
Defiance!
The harder something pushes back, the harder, it's not something that needs to be said.
Defiance!
Well, I gotta wonder,
Yeah,
because
small problem, guys. The computer's not responding. Yes, of course.
The computer's frozen.
Now
That's what
everything's
happened.
going sideways.
That's what happened. The computer froze.
Yeah,
okay, so it wasn't the call; it was just the computer freezing up.
Does that mean are we still on the air? Are we off?
we're still on.
Okay, folks, we're having technical problems here. If you're wondering where we are, Chris, if you can hear me, yeah.
Looks like he might be.
Yeah, it looks
calling
like
back in.
somebody's calling back. Maybe it's Chris.
No, that's somebody that's already in the call.
Oh.
What?
Oh, great.
And the call's not even responding. Oh, good heavens. Well, welcome to the trials and tribulations of doing paranormal radio, ladies and gentlemen. The sad part is, it's like I feel like this is almost the perfect place to plug that we could use this, viewer support.
Go ahead.
So we could definitely use viewer support. I'm not going to blame this on the fact that we don't have viewer support, much as I might like
lost
to.
somebody. I'm not sure who lost.
Please help stop things like this from happening.
Actually, yeah, there's a way you can help that, which won't cost you a penny. If anybody out there's listening, say a little prayer for us. That won't cost you nothing, and it can't hurt. But more seriously, it's like, yeah, we could use the financial backing if anybody can help us out. That's go to Patreon, patreon.com/demonology, DEMONOLOGY. Patreon.com/demonology. Look up Patreon Paranormal Encyclopedia. You'll find us that way too. On Google.
Find us on Facebook.
You can find, and yes, please, like us on Facebook. Look for us on YouTube. There's a bunch of old videos. We're in the process of uploading the new videos onto there too. We should be up to date there hopefully in the next few days.
Yep. And we have spots open for advertisers.
Yep.
Your logo could be here on the wall behind us, or we could mention your company.
We can we'll do an actual ad for you if you want.
Yeah, I can write something. We can have ghosts talk about your company.
I can't promise that one, but we can try.
Well, we can pretend
And
to have
they were
ghosts.
officially lost.
What was it?
They were officially lost.
Aw.
The call was lost?
Both of them were.
Okay, can we try to recall Chris?
So we're off air now.
No, I think we're still on air. I think it's just the call went out.
No.
Do we still have internet? Are we still on?
It looks like we still have it. Yeah, it was
Okay,
still
so
on internet.
it looks like the show's still going. It just the calls got lost.
Oh yeah. Skype.
100. Can I just push your phone over? I can message him through Facebook, see if he's on and can reconnect that way. Hey, Gene, we're having the technical problems again.
What's going on?
Beth, you want to fill him in while I...
The moment you walked out.
And a cocaine overdose at once.
Did he try to call in again?
We don't...
We don't know.
We have no idea because it just kind of hung itself.
Yeah,
When did we
the
start?
computer froze.
The computer froze?
Yeah.
Skype wasn't not reacting with anything.
And that would explain the.
Paranormal Encyclopedia is experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Stand by.
The gremlins in the computer.
Here's a good thing I can tell you.
Yes?
The show after yours bailed. They're not going to do it anymore.
Okay.
So the good news is you've got the extra hour because what am I going to do with it?
Yep.
But until I fill it,
When you fill it, you fill it.
what do you want to do?
Well, next week we can't go over because pretty much after the show.
I don't even want you to go over because I don't think it's fair to you. But I'm just saying the time is yours because there's nothing for a whole hour after yours.
I could do the vampire hour with.
I was going to say, specifically next week, Amisha and I have tickets to go see Star Wars The Last Jedi.
He's calling in now. Hold on.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see if this is back.
You're gonna go see that without me?
It's not your fault. Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
It's called
No, it's not. It's not yours either. It's just technical. The internet doesn't like us.
Hello.
Hello, Chris?
No, I pick him up and it won't.
Hey, I hear a voice. That's good.
Yes,
Back again.
you're back.
Yay!
Where Where was I? Where was I? It was scary.
That's right.
He was on the rabbit hole.
This is
In the nether zone.
the second time we've been doing this since October, so 2 months now. It's happened twice. We've had this kind of problem twice, and both with you.
That damn ghost boy, I tell you.
Kevin is certain that there is something out there that doesn't want people to hear what you have to say, but
Which is, of course, makes me more want to have you speak.
yeah,
The fire.
I'm not so
will
sure.
happen.
I'm not so sure because I asked you like mostly a joking question, and even though it's leading into a story, I don't know that the story is going to be so earth-shattering that it's going to take like the forces of hell to work against it.
Well, I'm not saying hell.
We may never know.
Yeah. Unless one of our listeners calls in and tells us we're getting EVP and we don't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had that happen before, too.
Our caller was actually a ghost.
No, I remember you telling me about the Anvil story.
Oh, well, I was talking about, and I'm sure, Chris, you're familiar with the story of Annabelle, the doll.
Yes.
Talking about it on the show, having the internet, having the internet and the power go out, and just before everything went sideways on us, having listeners tell us they could hear a little girl laughing.
Oh, Brett.
And we had
Don't mess this up.
had things calling Lorraine all sorts of nasty names when we had her on.
Yikes.
Interesting.
It's like,
That's just unfriendly, is what that is.
yeah. It's the thing I keep trying to reinforce
Hecklers from the other side.
with Brian, because Brian's the token skeptic and the token he doesn't want to see all this stuff, and it's
I
like,
have no interest in seeing a ghost. Like I mentioned to you last time, your story gave me like nightmares.
My apologies.
You didn't want to go to that Ghost Con.
Well, no, that was because that just sounded funny. Like there's an inn where apparently there's like dozens of ghosts. And they're all friendly and they all get along, and so I started making jokes about like Ghost Con 2012. I'm like, I didn't realize this happened. I didn't know that ghosts like just got together and threw parties and shit. I'm like, well, that changes my whole view of the afterlife.
and we're honestly not making fun of
I'm okay with this now.
the lady that we had on from the Captain Grant.
No, she was confirming
She's
all
very
this.
calm, and she has a very calm, rational side. But yeah, it sounds like ghost conventions.
Yeah, I was like, this is ridiculous.
It
I've
just makes
never
it
heard of this
amazing.
before. Yeah. I'm like,
It's like,
we have to
okay,
go-
we need to go out. It's only
have
in
to go see
Connecticut, so it's
this.
not that far. We've decided we have to go up there. We're going to drag Brian along for the
Yeah,
ride.
go see for ourselves. Well, because she assured me that all the ghosts were friendly, so I wasn't going to get like thrown around the room or
I've been
Stuff.
to some crazy parties. Be careful.
Well, yeah, there you go.
You've got Casper with a couple drinks in him and a lampshade on
Yeah,
his
you
head.
can't trust. Can't
All of a
trust
sudden,
the
you're
guy.
flying out over the Atlantic Ocean by an ankle because he thought it would be funny.
Oh my
That
God,
sounds like more Peter Pan shtick.
there's a story there. Totally writing this book. Once I get done with vampires, I'm gonna take a bunch of Kevin's stories and make a living off ghosts.
Well, you've already said you want to write me into a story. It's like
I am.
I'm giving you material. For
I
that.
am. I'm bringing you in.
Which I find immensely flattering as well as humorous.
But the idea of Avery going to like Ghost Con would be awesome. Anyway, so Chris, let's let you continue your story. You were talking about the night before you had your speech.
Right. Yeah. Jeff and I were placed back in that dorm room
Mhm.
25 years later. And I was happy because it didn't seem as bad as my memory thought it was. Sometimes you have a memory and it grows and grows in your mind. And I got to the room, it was kind of clean, small, and I liked that fact, that it had seemed to return to normalcy. Believe it or not, Jeff, who was the brave one back in the day, slept under the bed that night, under the bed. So it shows you that it did have impact on us, all those years later. And the following morning, we got up and we worked over like we want to cover because we never talked before in public. That's where somebody just toes, and then we spoke, and it was an amazing thing. And no, I threw no one off the stage, so that didn't happen, which is good. But I remember in that morning before we went to speak, I was, I want to present myself well, so you shave, you shower and things. And I walked into the shower. I remember I was in that shower on March 10th, 1985. I had gone for a long run in the countryside, like 10 miles, and the priest had blessed the room. It had been quiet for a number of days, and I was taking my shower, the flashbacks when it happened, and I saw on the ceiling there was a shadow, a silhouette of shoulders, a tilted neck and head like I had seen in the room. A ghost looked like that, and I thought, well, maybe I'm just seeing things. Sometimes you rub your eyes, at least after effect. Yeah. You can look at clouds, and you can see shapes in clouds, and it looks like something it's not. But then the shadow moves. I'm like, what? So I ran out of the shower into the middle of the bathroom, looked up, and the shadow was moving across the ceiling. But the bathroom was empty, and here's what scared me. My shadow, as it should have been, because the light is above me, was by my feet off my leg. This shadow was above on the ceiling where there was, there's no light source below it, so that's a physical impossibility because nothing is there. So I realized, oh no, it's the ghost. What do? I had two thoughts. Go back in the shower, turn the water off, so it doesn't flood the bathroom out, and then go to my room and call the priest, right? Something didn't work properly. So I go back into the shower stall. I turn the lever to turn the water off, and as the water is turned off, I'm forced like a push, like a sharp push in my back, and I'm pushed into the wall face first. And it feels like I'm stabbed in the back because if you ever cut your finger, it's numb at first, and then the pain will come. So in the movies, they always say, oh, no, don't forget that. I'm stabbed, I'm fighting. So I turn around, I punch out, and I punch the shower curtain off the railing. It goes to the ground. I walk out in the middle of the bathroom, and I yelled, who are you? What are you? Show yourself. You coward. Nothing. I looked in the sink, and above the sink were mirrors where you shave and brush your hair and things. And I checked my back. There was no knife, but instead there were three roughly parallel lines of scratches. They were beating up blood already. That surprised me that they were bleeding so quickly. And looking back, they weren't exactly parallel, they were roughly parallel, and they were different lengths. So the one on the far left was like maybe half the length of the middle one, etc. And it burned. And I remember thinking to myself, what the hell? What have I done to deserve this? I wasn't a bad person. I didn't hurt people. I mean, why would this happen? I remember thinking, God, what? You got the wrong person. This is not the right thing to happen. And I was going to pray for my safety, which is a fair thing to say, right?
Yeah.
Then I realized, wait a second. In history class, I had learned about the concentration camps, and I had learned about the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who met their deaths in these chambers. In a sense, a shower. I remember all the unclad bodies piled up, and I bet they probably prayed. They probably hoped for things. They probably had dreams. They probably laughed and cried and fell in love and listened to music. There they were, piles of dead people. I thought, well, if he's not going to save them, he probably won't save me because what am I? I'm just one person with like billions, So I just, what? I'm not going to make his face. If I'm in the casket, I'm going to be upset. I'll close my eyes. I'll lay on the ground and wait. I don't want to die, but I can't stop it from happening. And so I went on the ground, laid on the ground, just lying there shaking, either because of fear or because of trauma, because of the cold. And I remember I saw on my wrist one thing caught my eye. It was a droplet, a bead of water hanging off my wrist when I was in the shower. And I just looked at that. And that helped me focus my perspective on something. And then it fell. I'm like, and I was upset because my water fell. It's funny how sometimes in crisis you own things, because that's what I had was a droplet. And then I went, wait a second. In that water drop, I had seen the whole room inverted. I thought, okay, that water is refracted. It reflects light. That's science. When the drop fell off my wrist, that's gravity. That's science. I looked down, and the grout from the tile, the bathroom was wet. That's moisture. So I knew that science was working between refraction and gravity and moisture, but I didn't understand, what this other thing was, this ghost thing. And I said, I don't want to die, but I can't do this. And I can't every day put my brain back together again, piece by piece. I'm going to get tired. It's going to win. I will lose. And it's over. I don't have the strength for this. And, years later, I think about people who have dyslexia. They think, oh, my gosh, they're so stupid. They can't read. No. The letters they see appear in different orders. They don't have the ability to tell you they're saying things. They don't know they are. And so you might think they're stupid, but they're struggling to read the same thing you are, even though they're smart. And sometimes our pain is a quiet pain. Our embarrassment is a quiet embarrassment. I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if people go through this every day with things like paranoia or PTSD. You know, so in that moment of despair, I realized I should be thankful when it doesn't happen to me. And anyway, so I'm ready to pass out. The door opens up. In comes Jeff, and then Beth. They pick me up. They put a towel on my body. They drag me out of the room. You know, and the first thing I said was, "We're going to the hospital." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to the hospital because it's me." And if they sedate me, if they put me some kind of jacket or things around me, I can't run. I keep on moving. So I said, if you put me in the hospital, I will fight you. So instead, we got cotton swabs, cotton balls. We got peroxide and Band-Aids. And for 47 minutes, it was peroxide and cotton swab, onto my back, Band-Aid. I'd rather have the pain than lose my ability to run and to move and to shift. And I remember Jeff said to me, because it's getting darker, it's wintertime, so it gets dark like around 4 o'clock. He said, the light's getting dim. I want a picture of your back before the light goes too dim. And I said to him, no. Because you understand, this is evidence. I mean, this is, if we can show these scratches, these are pretty big. That'll be, I said, please. Because what I needed was a friend. I needed to have a friend who was there for me and not for the scratches, who cared about me more than the evidence. I said to him, Jeff, if you're my friend, you will not take that picture. And he said, and he stopped. And he realized my words. And he said, I'm your friend. I won't take it. And so in that moment, I realized for sure in my crisis that Jeff viewed me first as a friend and then second as the ghost boy. And I never forgot that. I never forgot that friendship came first. And it sounds silly because how stupid. The picture would be great to have. But you know what? Sometimes a friend's even better.
The compassion is just so critical. I mean, you're in crisis. You need somebody to just show you that basic compassion. I agree 100%. You know, evidence is lovely, but when you're the guy in crisis, you want somebody who gives a shit.
Well, yeah, and in the middle
you don't
of an
know.
emergency,
You don't know.
You're not thinking of, posterity and all of that kind of thing.
It's terror. Look, even a family pet will scratch out and attack if their leg is hurt or they're injured. They still love you, but they don't know how to react, and that's people sometimes do the same thing. I mean, you get somebody who's coming up a drug. It can be very dangerous. Oh yeah. You know, and so you have to be very careful.
I actually have something that actually happened within my family. I've talked before about magnets hitting me because I pissed off somebody who had passed in my house, and I lived there for various years.
Just so you know, Chris, this is Beth speaking that you've messaged with over the Michigan.
Our producer.
Well, this one is not mine personally. I have a couple of doozies, but this one is actually my father's. And if I tell it wrong, he is more than welcome to try calling in and correcting me. And so this was back when he was in the Air Force, and he was stationed overseas in Britain. And one day we were talking about his career, and he told me about, the things that they used to send over, voice recorders and whatnot, because of long distance. It's not like they had internet back then. And so while he was over there, he had some, sort of sowing of the wild oats, hell raising that he was doing. And after a while, because he was raised Catholic, he decided to essentially kind of reform himself. And so this is according to him. I'm not sure how well his recall would be, but he took to reading the Bible every day, page to page. And after a while, because he started essentially being the schlub of the group, he didn't want to, go out and party, hit the pub, things like that. One night, everybody was supposed to be in the barracks, and he said, you know what, I'm going to go to bed. So he goes up and he goes to bed, and he falls asleep. While he's sleeping, and he sees a demonic creature, he calls it Satan, but his description, and from what I know of various myths and whatnot, didn't really line up. But this thing wanted him to come and go with him, and he told it, screw off, go away, don't want you here. And he was still in the bed when this was all happening, and he felt the bed pick up and shake, and it was just shaking him like crazy, and making all sorts of a racket. After like 3 or 4 times, it finally throws the bed down, and it jolts my father awake. And he thought it was just a bad dream until his buddies came in, going, "Dude, what are you doing up here?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? You jerks were shaking the bed while I was in the middle of a nightmare." And it's like, "We just came in here, and you've been thudding around up here for the last like 20 minutes." And so my father's confused.
Really?
And so when they looked around the bed towards the foot of it, where this thing was shaking the life out of this thing and trying to like throw my father off of it,
Mm-hmm.
there were scratch marks in the wood.
Yep.
Right on the floor.
That's scary stuff.
Not shocked at all.
So I'm like, yeah, and this is why, we all have these encounters in this family. Thanks, Dad. This is all your fault. You brought it home from England.
Yeah, good man.
Well, that's England for you. I mean, in the United States, it's a big deal to have a ghost. In the United Kingdom, it's a big deal not to have a ghost.
Yeah.
There's a Scottish ghost story called The House That Lacked a Bogle, which is a ghost story about a house that isn't haunted.
That's how remarkable it is.
Some people say that everything is good. There's no bad. Some people say there is no negative. There's no malevolent things. But I don't know. If you have people who do good and bad things, then I think it's possible theoretically that the spirits might do the same thing. No.
Yeah.
And no offense
Absolutely.
to people, but me and Kevin called those the fluffy bunnies.
Yeah. People who think there's nothing negative out there, yeah, you're fluffy buddies. And gives me a really good laugh, I have to admit.
We have another caller coming in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
2 in one night.
Yep, we're trying.
It's not clicking?
It's clicking. It's doing a thing.
It's doing the thing.
Caller out there, we are trying to connect you.
We are reaching to the other side of the Skype call.
We knew he'd be good guest. And
Oh,
look,
yeah.
we got our first 2 calls.
Spirits of Skype. If there is anyone out there, please
What is it?
make
Saint
yourself known.
Jude or
Is Caesar still?
Saint Anthony? One's the patron saint of lost causes. One's the patron saint of
I believe
Lost
Jude
objects.
is lost causes.
Yeah.
Anthony is lost objects.
Right. That's why I always mix the 2 up.
Okay.
See who the caller is.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Hello,
Is Christopher still there?
Yeah, he's still
Yeah,
there.
but make sure you can hear him.
Chris. Can you hear us?
I think
Can
he's
anyone
on.
hear us?
Hello?
Chris, are you there?
Did we lose everybody again?
It's just Chris now.
Hello.
He's got that little thing going around.
Ali Oxen
Oh.
Free.
Hold on. Wait. Chris, you there?
Are you
I hear
there,
again. I can hear him back.
Guy.
Okay, we got him.
I am
Okay.
now. Yeah. What do I keep telling you?
I don't know. The
It's
caller
dark in there.
didn't quite go through, unfortunately.
Yeah, we apparently the computer's saying only one call at a time. Stop it.
Yeah.
Is apparently its attitude
Our
right now. So.
computer is not good.
It's Skype and the internet. They don't always cooperate with us. Caller, whoever that is out there, we do apologize. Try again in maybe 15 minutes, or try sending a
Send a
Message on
text.
the video, and
Yeah.
we can read it out loud for you.
yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Skype has messaging and all that.
Oh, that was a phone number.
Well, if you're on the internet, you can message us.
So, speaking of callers, give the phone number out.
Yeah, good idea. I'm hoping it'll work.
Yeah,
So-
if we can work.
609-807-2492. 609-807-2492. You know, I find it funny that when we're sitting here, I can remember the phone number. When I'm like when I was emailing Chris to give him the number to call in, like,
Totally
wait,
blank.
I have to look up the number.
Yeah. Situational memory.
Yeah. But okay, so let's keep going. So you've just been attacked in the shower.
Well, right. And when my friends finally pulled me out of the bathroom, they wanted to bring me to the hospital, but I refused to go.
Right.
And that led us to the section where, about the photograph of the scratches. Now, looking back, it would have been kind of interesting to have that photograph, to see what the measurements were and what it looked like, and to compare it to other kinds of injuries. But for my purposes, I was just happy that I had friends around me. And, sometimes it sounds silly, but sometimes when you're going through a bad time, the best thing for you is someone that cares for you, and
Absolutely.
because you begin to feel isolated. And I remember I was walking through a mall in Pennsylvania, the Steamtown Mall by Scranton, and this gentleman came up to me and they gave me a big hug and he said, "Oh my gosh, my hero was a kid." I'm like, "What?" he had like, Luke Skywalker and the Ghost Boy. He read about me and he wanted to be this Ghost Boy. And when he wrestled, he'd say, "I am the Ghost Boy," And he asked me, was it cool being Ghost Boy? Was it fun? Because he wanted to be me and have that gift.
Oh yes.
And so I explained to him that no, it was frightening and it was scary and how horrible it was. But what's cool? It was cool that there I thought I was by myself, alone in that room sometimes. There were some that I didn't know, from states away, cheering for me, hoping for me. So you never know. There's somebody out there, so don't isolate. There's always someone. You might look different and sound different, but they'll put a hand out when you need it. And I think it's very important not to forget.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Well, knowing that you touched
somebody cares.
life
Somebody made a difference to somebody.
Yeah, you inspired someone else, whether you knew it or not.
Right. But you always know that, Sometimes, like if you get a haircut and 8 people say it's nice, one person says, "Ooh," you're like, what do you mean? And that one person bothers you. You know what I mean?
But yeah, what?
And there's a saying, and I can't remember what exactly it is, but for every negative comment, you have to give it X number of positive ones in order to counteract that one negative comment.
It's a saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that's how we operate.
We hear the negative and we shut out the positive.
Well, we assume that when people tell us like positive things that they're just being
nice.
That they're being nice. We therefore assume that if somebody takes the time to go, "Oh my God, that looks horrible," that like, wow, that's the one honest person that's
somebody who took the time
straight with me.
Well, see, at the same time, that also follows the same logic of gossip. But like several different wives' tale where it's essentially, a woman gossips about her friend finds out, she apologized, but everybody's just kind of turned her back on her, and she doesn't understand why, because she was the town scold. She goes to local wise man, woman, gypsy, what have you, for that area where the story is being told, and essentially it's like, have a bag of rice, have a hole in it, drag it throughout town, and then the next day you pick it up, or have a chicken, get it killed, pluck the feathers as you go, and see how many you can bring back. And the next day when she does, she has so few left. And the lesson is, when you're being openly vicious and cruel, everybody's going to take you seriously, because everybody wants to know the worst, especially about other people.
I think somebody's trying to call him in.
Yeah, somebody's trying to.
Yes. Only because it doesn't say add to group call, so if we cut him off, we'll cut and see.
So we'll have the same problem as last time.
Yeah, so we're not doing that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for giving the number out again, folks. It's just not cooperating with us right now, so we're gonna have to.
Apologies
when did
to
the phone number come back up?
callers.
I just gave it like 5 minutes ago.
Well, no, on the screen I did not. Oh. Okay.
Someone remembered it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, I also did just give it out.
Yeah.
Between.
Well, no, we had to turn it off for the first half so that this way Chris could have his, main thing. But yeah, like I was saying, it mainly follows that line of logic with the way gossip works when it comes to receiving negative feedback, because especially with how self-critical we are, we're going to take that far better than somebody's just trying to do massage or pick you up.
Well, and we also believe that of other people. When you hear a negative rumor about a celebrity or a famous person or someone else, you're always tend to be quick to believe that.
Rather goodness! Rather than
the positive.
How long did Michael Jackson have to deal with a pedophile accusations as he had it till his dying day?
Well, yeah, because it was easy to believe. He was, he was weird. He acted funny and blah blah blah. So, of course, everybody wants to believe. All right, there's more to it. Yes. Everybody wants to believe the worst of him.
Okay.
But anyway, back to topic.
I do have my Facebook open. If anybody does have a question, feel free to message me as Kevin Mears. Yes. I've gotten a couple of messages I need to respond to. Not related to the show, though. Kathleen Wilson, who's a friend of yours, at least on Facebook, message to let us know that we're still on the air.
Oh.
Which is always nice to know. Thank you, Kathleen.
That's good to know. Yeah, we weren't sure for a while.
Yeah, it's one of the things. It's like, especially because our station manager Gina just stepped out of the room when we first lost you, and we're trying to figure out, wait, are we even still on the air? What's going on here?
That's going to be one for the blooper reel.
That's the thing about doing live. It's going to happen.
It's all blooper reel.
Yeah.
But anyway, so It's like 8:15 now. I think we want to let Chris at least finish. Get to the good part of the story. Not that it's not all. Good.
It's all great, but
it's all great. But you know what? The resolve like what you can for the listeners.
I mean, we're not on a hard time limit here. But we do want to get to
I just realized we never actually finished the C2D1 haunting story.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That's what we're trying to loop back to.
Get him to at least finish that part.
Sure. Well, after the attack happened, it became clear that even though the room had been blessed and I was safe there, that the thing was angry because it still wanted to have access, and now it was upset. And so at that point in time, from that day, March 10th on, that's when the attacks began to affect other people. One of my friends, Beth, she lived in another part of the building. It was called Erie Hall. I know, right? Like, but it was next to Lake Erie, and it had 3 buildings to it. So I was in the C building, and the B building where some of the girls lived. There's a girl named Beth, and we were going to have a little get together, and there was a bunch of friends, and usually she was the first person there, and she didn't show up, and so Jeff and I went to her room, and the door was open a little bit, and we saw the room was trashed. I don't know what the heck happened. Maybe like someone got angry or someone attacked them, and I pushed the door open, and I just saw her feet lying still behind the couch, and we got to her. She was unconscious, and then we asked her, okay, we shook her a little bit, and she said, the ghost wouldn't leave her alone, and she had to throw things at it, and it kept calling my name over and over again, and then she lost consciousness. So that was a scary thing, and another girl in the building, Linda, she's saying she'd been held out in her bed, and she couldn't move, and it was just, these things began to happen more and more, and I realized, you can't have a priest come and bless like 26 rooms. It's just not functional. It's not feasible, and, it's, what else can we do? And so at that point in time, we reached out to Dr. Lawrence Kassler, who was a psychology professor at the college, who loved the paranormal, and he would travel all over the country looking for cases to investigate, and he was floored by the fact that this is happening, like
on his doorstep,
right down the path from his, literally, yes. And so he was fascinated by it, and he was, I think, more intrigued by the fact that I didn't like it, than the evidence we had, because he felt it strange that why wouldn't someone like this attention? And as I explained to him,
because the ghost was obviously such a charming fellow and so lovable.
I mean, claw marks appear on your back. Your friends are being attacked. It's not that hard to understand why you're not enjoying
keeping
yourself.
Up in the middle of the night. I mean, he's a nuisance. Even if he wasn't dangerous.
It's like, suppose, for example, you have a friend, and everyone likes him, and he's polite, he's happy, and he says, "Oh, I have so many friends." It's like, what? How can that possibly be? Or someone has too much money. So he was confused. Then so he began to do these tests on me with these cards. He put them upside down on the table. He said, "I'm going to hold this card to my head. Tell me what I'm thinking." I'm like, so he began doing this experiments, which really freaked me out. And so
hadn't you seen
he said,
Ghostbusters?
guess the cards that he's holding. I've heard they're cold. Your cards with me? Yeah. And so he did this experiment, and I got everyone wrong. And I said, I told you I'm stuck at this. He goes, no, it's impossible. You can't get like 20 wrong in a row. It's like 2 cards. The odds are against that. Then he realized that each time he drew a line, I got the next card in the pile. In other words, he held the card to his head, I got the next one every time. He goes, oh my God. And he called that positive one-step progression. And he wanted to send me to like down in Virginia Education Institute or something like that. But I ran. So anyway,
no, I was going to say probably the, what's his name? Ryan, I think, was Virginia.
So Anthony apparently was wondering if Chris will accept his challenge for a 5K race.
Boom, boom.
What kind of race?
5K.
Oh God, I'll try my best. I haven't run a 5K in years, but I'll give it my best.
Run, Ghost Boy, run.
I used to run 15:50 for 5K. Now it'll be like that's the mailbox. But I'll do my best.
Exactly.
But in any event, so he asked us if we could get recordings. He told us how to do that, how to clear the room and lock everything up and mark things in the ground. And so Jeff and I and our friends began to try to record this ghost whenever he appeared in the girl's room. And that's when we got some of the more interesting EVPs, as they're called now, things like "Help me, Chris," and "Please help me," and "Chris," and which is interesting because that's what I heard. In other words, when they captured the voice on the tape, it's the same things that I said that it was saying to me prior to that, which was kind of for them it was amazing. Like, my gosh, corroboration. It's so exciting because back then there were no cell phones, so you get some audio proof, you get some video proof. It's not like today we get all in one. But again, I was upset because hold on, it's saying to help him. I can't. I throw things at him. I run. I mean, how do you help someone if you can't control your own actions? And how do you fight a war with no weapon? So the more evidence we got, the more I realized I'm out of my league. So finally it happened that one of my friends said to me, "Listen, my roommate is having a problem. He keeps hearing the voice goes call your name, and I took him camping. He hears the voice that goes call your name. I took him to the movies that goes call your name. Talk to him." And I didn't talk to him because what am I going to say to him? I can't stop myself. And that gentleman, when she went home, committed suicide. And I never lifted a finger to help him. I never said one word to him. And even though if someone's suicidal, you can't always talk them out of it.
Yeah.
The fact that I didn't make an effort really burned me inside. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even try to help this person. And when things like that happen, you have two choices: to isolate and regret things and be angry and bitter, or to say, you know what, from now on. And so once that happened and my friends are being attacked, I realized I had to do something. I became proactive, and on April 21st, around 3 in the morning, I went in the bathroom, took a shower, cleaned myself up because I was sweaty from nightmares, and I walked in that room and I said, okay, I'm breaking the blessing. Please talk with me.
Nice.
And commercial break.
See, this is why we need advertisers. If you were an advertiser, we'd be playing your commercial right now.
Next on Ghost Boy.
Because that's definitely just thematically, it's like dramatic pause.
Yeah. Well, it's the perfect act break. It's
so how about those local sports teams?
Yes. How about that local sports competition?
I noticed, Kevin, there's a question on your page. I noticed, Kevin, there's a question on your Facebook page. There's a question on your Facebook page, I noticed.
Oh.
I'd like to answer that.
What is it?
No, please
see it.
Yes.
Hold on, and I actually signed you out, so you have to sign it back in.
Well, Chris, you can read it if you want. Then
yeah, by all means.
Yeah, sure. The question is, why is Christian Cesare so freaking cool? Oh, I asked that question. Okay, so I'll answer it.
That's a good question.
It's fun. I can help it.
No, it's awesome.
Next question.
Well, the obvious question is, what did the ghost say?
Yeah. That's
one on everyone's lips. You know that.
Fun time.
Tell us about when you and the ghost made pottery together, and
Yes, that's the wrong guy.
The Everly Brothers were playing. No, sorry, wrong movie.
You got to ask Whoopi Goldberg about that. Ask Whoopi Goldberg, yeah. Tell you.
I'll bet. I'm sure you get.
Or did the grim-looking guy in the cloak show up and you played him chess?
No, that's different. That's entirely different. Yeah. I'm sure you get all the ghost the ghost jokes.
Well, yeah, but it's okay because laugh is a nice thing, and no matter what's going on your day, a joke is always a fun thing to have.
Yeah,
it's always good to laugh with somebody.
Yeah,
and that's what it is. We're laughing with, not at.
Right, and be able to see the humor in things, even sometimes the bad things that happen.
One of the things that people say sometimes to me is that, if you watch the sci-fi show or the film, Please Talk With Me, it's not that funny. And people usually say, you're a pretty funny guy, and where's all the humor? But I have to tell you that sometimes it's hard to be funny if you're having a hard time, and you can do it, but it just shows you that your environment can sometimes affect your moods and affect, who you are. And like I said, once I got through those days, boy, was I happy. I just so happy. And when you think you're going to literally pass away, maybe you get a diagnosis of cancer. Maybe you're in a plane that almost crashes. I mean, when you survive something like that, you appreciate just being there, and all of a sudden the annoying things stop annoying you because, oh my gosh, I'm here. And eventually it fades off, but for a while you just appreciate being healthy and alive. And I try real hard to keep that perspective in my life, even though things still bother me. But in the long run, hey, it could have been a lot worse.
Absolutely.
And I got
That's
10th
a
grade.
good
I got hit
message.
by a car walking across the street.
Wow.
And I know exactly what you mean about that. Especially when I got hit by a car and I broke my leg. That's all that happened. There was definitely that.
Right.
Lots of people
That's
died.
fortunate.
I got really lucky, and there is that feeling of wow.
That's very true.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's what happened.
Well, it'd be really weird if Kevin suddenly revealed, so I got hit by a car and I died. And I've been a ghost this whole time, and I fooled all of you.
He is not Yusuke Urameshi. This is not Yu Yu Hakusho.
I knew I liked him for a reason.
There you go.
You've always seen dead people.
Exactly. Just that whole natural rapport. He's like, haha, Brian, now you have to believe. I've been a ghost this whole time, just like Bruce Willis.
All right, might as well start a radio show.
I mean, there's got to be a ghost out there somewhere who wants his own radio show.
Hey, there you go.
You gotta believe.
And if you are out there, ghosts, call in,
Well, you're not going to be able to call in given the problems we're having.
Skype cannot handle that, Brian.
Yeah.
Do you dare?
Okay, so if there's any of the living impaired around who want, we've got a couple extra microphones. Have a seat and say hello.
Latu, Baraka, Neck 2.
I just hope it's not Zach Hugans. Zach Hugans. I can't even stop.
I've had a bunch of dear friends in the field pass away over the last few years. And it's like, you'd think one of them would sit down. I can see Lou sitting down, or Father Joe sitting down just to screw with me.
I've been waiting for that. We had that EVP session. Kevin was sure they were there, and I was like, well, okay, let's do this. Help Kevin out. He's trying to prove the EVP thing to me.
We'll get you one of these days.
One of these days.
If nothing else, when we take you up to Captain Grant's, I think something will probably happen.
Yeah.
And I actually really need to figure out what it is that Alia kept hearing.
Mm.
And because she heard it, nobody else did, but something kept saying, help me.
Yeah. Well, for that matter, the week before, the Halloween in the Catskills that Anthony mentioned that we were all at, we were there 2 weeks.
Right.
And the week Brian wasn't there, we're doing EVPs because, when you're ghost hunter and you're bored after a convention, this is what you do, apparently.
Right.
And we've got, my recorders out. We've got everybody's cell phones out, so we get multiple recordings. And all of a sudden, we ask the one question, the cell phone lights up on its own and goes dim. And it's like, nobody touched it. Nobody was near it. It shouldn't have turned on like that. It did.
Right. Well, those are always what you look for. And, if you think about it, too, many people who do claim to or do see spirits or ghosts very rarely see their relatives.
True.
Many times they're going to see, like, an historical figure. They're going to see somebody from a movie, but they don't. And I wonder about that sometimes, because if these spirits do have some capability to think, to understand, and are sentient, why wouldn't they contact their relatives as often as they could? Because then they can communicate with trust. And I think one of the things about that is it's too close to home. I think that we're more willing to look for somebody from history with no connection, whereas if it's our mother, grandmother, friend, daughter, also that can be so personal, maybe they want to handle that, because what if they're always around all the time, you can't help them, and so I think there's almost a human reaction that makes us pull away from things too close to us sometimes.
But there's a huge, it's absolutely fascinating for me, but there is a very large body of experiences where people do see their loved ones. It's not usually in the haunting sense. It's somebody stops in
right after,
to
right?
say, usually right after
they pass, right?
Not always, but usually it's shortly after they die, and they pop in for a visit.
Yes. Yes, I that happened with me once. My grandfather passed away, and I was a pallbearer at his funeral. And I was lying in bed 3 days later, sleeping, and all of a sudden looked up, and there in the doorway was my grandfather, and wearing the same suit that we had buried him in. And I wanted to wake my wife up because she doesn't see these things. Like, oh, you gotta see this. And so I tried to stall him. So I said,
wait.
Right, Grandpa? And he goes, yeah, hold on. So I said to him, you're dead. He goes, yes. I said, okay. And so I said to him, am I going to go to heaven? He goes, you? And laughed. So I knew it was him. And then he said to me, you have to find the gray box. Like, what? You have to find the gray box. So I got the message. I checked my wife awake, looked up, he was gone. But I wrote things down. So in the morning, I called my mom. She knew what I was talking about. Called my uncle, and it turns out that my grandpa had a gray box, and he kept papers in there. And apparently, there was some kind of insurance paper in there for my grandma. So that was a nice thing, you know. But so not everything happened was bad.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Good
That's kind of cool.
And that's the thing. It's like, especially when I'm involved, it's always the doom and the gloom and the people running for the hills. But there are lots of stories exactly like that, where wonderful. I mean, there's a very interesting story I read as a kid about Dante Alighieri that there were parts of his famous poem, The Divine Comedy, was published at least in parts when he was alive, but when he died, it was thought to be unfinished. And then one night, his son had a dream where Dante came to him as a ghost, and the son asked him, where is the Divine Comedy? Did you ever finish it? Where is it? And Dante pointed to a spot in his study, and when they checked, they found it.
That's amazing.
Nice. So, so let's get back to what the ghost said when you finally got him. You invited him in and said, "Please talk with me."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I was taking a risk because I had been attacked by this thing already.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you feel you're cornered in a choice, I had to be brave. What else can I do? And my parents raised me to think that a good person helps. So I'm going to try my best. So I had one candle. One candle is all I had. I lit it. I said a prayer, and then I said, "I know you can hear me. I know you're always all around me. I'm going to talk to you once, and this is the time. If you don't show up now, I'm never going to talk to you. Now is the time. Do it now." And I waited about a minute or two, and the candle flickered, and I saw the shadow on the wall. I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Then I was scared. Like, it seemed like a good idea until it actually happened. I'm like, what am I doing? And just in case, I learned from soccer that your hips control your direction. So just in case, I turn my hips to the door, just to like the pull feather real fast. And he stood before me. And he looked horrible. He looked so sad. I don't think I've thankfully seen a person living look that sad. And I wanted to hit him. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't because I was so annoyingly moved by his emotion. And he said, "So much pain." And I just looked at him and he said, "So much pain." Then he followed up with, "Made a mistake." And so I just said, look, and thank God I didn't smell. I was afraid he'd smell like decay or something like that, but it was just very cold smelling, And I said, "Listen, you keep calling for me. You want my help. Here's my help. You have to believe that whatever you did can be forgiven, that someone still loves you. You need to find rest." And he said again, "Made mistake, so much pain." And I remember at that moment, just repeating himself, that Jeff had told me months before, if you ever do talk to him, get brave enough, ask him closed-ended questions. Questions that can be looked back at later on and to answer to determine some data rather than, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And so I remembered. So I said to him, I asked, "Where are you from?" And he said one word. He said the word Danville. And I still notes today. So the word Danville. I told that to Jeff days later, And so, okay, we had a place. That's good. And then he went to put his hand out toward me, and I just backed away because I don't know what that means. Is this like possession? Is that am I supposed to do that? All I knew is I didn't want to touch his hand because I didn't know what that meant. So I pulled back away, and I said, "No, you have to listen. You have to let go and understand you've been forgiven. You can't stay here. People are getting hurt. People are dying. If you want my help, I'm telling you, you have to find rest. You can't stay here." The night that he showed up at my room, when I had the candy in my hands, I counted to 10 because I wanted to calm myself down. And so trying to go back to that pattern, he might have understood that, trying to communicate, I don't know. I said, "I'm going to count to 10. And when I get to 10, you cannot be here." And I began to count. And I closed my eyes. I got to 10. I opened my eyes. I was scared too, because the movies always happen, right? But no, it was quiet. I didn't see it. The room felt warm. I thought, okay, at least temporarily it listened. I don't know if it was a temporary victory or not, but at least I was proud that I faced it and I gave it advice. I didn't tell anyone what I did. The following day, Jeff came into the room and he says, "Hey, it's kind of nice in here, and there's no reports of anything happening today. Because usually every day something happens. Someone's reporting things falling on the ceiling, people being, nothing. And for the next 3 days, 4 days, nothing. And so finally, after 4 days, I got my friend and said, listen, just so you know, here's what happened. And I told them, like, wow. And some of them were upset because they can't see it anymore, but most of them understood that it's a good thing that it was finally, hopefully, at peace. But here's the thing. My perception was I helped it. My perception was it found rest. Do I know that for sure? No. And so when the semester ended a few days later, I left. And I did not go back for, 20, 25 years. And so years later, when the sci-fi show called and people are making movies and books about this, the question came up, who was it? Who was this person? And that's where the word Danville came into play. It turns out there was a gentleman, a young man, who was killed. He was basically almost like hung in a tree, which might explain the neck a little bit, you know. And he was tortured. His name was Thomas Boyd. During the haunting, we all call this ghost Tommy. Because Tommy knockers, Tommy, can you hear me? For whatever reason, Jeff was also amazed by that. Every person called it Tommy independently. I had a parakeet named Tommy, so I called it Tommy. But ironically, we all have the same name. And Jeff will tell you this to this day, of all the things in the haunting, the most amazing to him was that every person, for their own different reason, called this thing Tommy. Well, this Tommy Boyd, who was killed a mile from my college room in this tree, was from Danville, Pennsylvania. That was such an amazing thing. And the fact that we could go back and look at a document 30 years ago and show the correlation is just astounding, because at the time, there's a Dansville, New York with an S. I thought they had heard it wrong, 10 miles away. But lo and behold, this Thomas Boyd from, like he said, Danville, Pennsylvania. And when people tell me they go into a house and know everything about every spirit within 2 seconds, I question it only because I lived with this thing for months. It talked to him almost every day. And I still didn't quite understand what was happening exactly. And when you talk about people being alive without the hardship of piercing the veil and trying to hear things and EVPs, even when people face-to-face have arguments and disagree, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, not again.
Again.
Chris, you there? Hello? Did we lose him a third time? Hello? Oh, bloody heck. You believe me yet?
Once again, the internet. I don't know. I've had plenty of.
I think it's specifically Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, it's Skype. And the thing is, I actually had a follow on to his doubt, which is understandable. I know individuals who.
Wait, I think he may still be here. Chris?
He's trying to come through.
That now it sounds like a saying. Chris, can you hear us?
Don't go into the light.
Knock 3 times if you can hear me. Oh, really, thanks.
Twice on the pipe. But yeah, I actually had a follow up to that observation of his where he said it was doubtful. I know people that they're not, how to put it, very experienced with spirits and whatnot, but they've seen things that have been even in my own house. A good friend of mine was over at my house one day and counted more cats and described to me a cat. I had no idea what she was talking about. My mom had no idea what she was talking about because as far as she knew, there were no cats there. We talked to my grandmother, and it was apparently her father's cat. It was an indoor-outdoor cat that would follow him to the train station before he went out to work, because he worked in the Black Hills out in the Midwest in the mines, and then would come back, and it would wait for him until he came home, and it would come into the house and would just follow him around. It was more loyal than any dog he ever had. When he passed, the cat disappeared. But the description that we got was that it was never there. I've never seen this cat in my life at any point, and neither has my mom. And other people I know, they'll go into a place, they won't know everything off the bat, but because it's a slightly different energy, it's okay, who's up in that room, and that room. That's at least, and somebody may have more than that in the house, but these would be, the the ones that most people don't pick up immediately. But it really depends on what your frequency is, how you're attuned.
I also think in Chris's case, I mean, a lot of people when you've been at it a while, you're a little better at fine tuning it. But Chris's experience is right as he's first realizing, he didn't even know that this sort of thing existed anymore, and hopefully that's him trying to call back.
I think so.
I died.
Try again, Chris. We hear you. We want you to speak.
Come back, Chris.
But I'm always, I have to admit, I'm always a little skeptical of psychics. Just because, well, I will be the first to say I have met many legitimate psychics over the years, and sensitives, and all the various other names they want to call themselves. But I've also met quite a lot of them that are just nuts, or that are scam artists trying to make a buck. So I always take psychics with a grain of salt until it's like, I'm willing to accept it's possible, but you're going to need to convince me.
You mean you don't believe the Long Island medium?
Oh, God.
That's like trusting Miss Cleo. We don't do that here.
No, really, I see dead people all the time. There's dead people right
I'm a better
here.
psychic than that,
And I'm talking to the spirits right
I can do a better job than she did, and I don't have any psychic ability. It's called cold reading.
Yeah.
Thank you, John Edwards.
Oh, God.
Oh, good Lord. Why anyone believes that man is psychic is absolutely beyond me. He's not even good at the magic trick he's doing.
His charisma is a 20 before rolling. That is the only explanation.
I don't think he's that charismatic. I think he's like
well, you're not a woman.
10 at best.
Excuse you, as somebody who completely finds him unattractive in any form, that's the only logical explanation I can come up with. He has something that is boosting his charisma to 20.
It's a magic item.
I mean, we're going to have to do an episode probably in January at this point, because we are still booked through the end of the month, about psychics, and I'll get into the art of cold reading and the Barnum effect.
Absolutely.
If folks out there, if you're listening and you're wondering how John Edwards, Sylvia Brown, and most of the other big names, Long Island medium, how they do what they're doing, we'll give you a crash course in it.
Along with like half the people that do tarot readings and stuff.
And he's trying again.
Somebody who does tarot readings, sir, fight me.
Which, let's be fair. One, not saying that all of any of these things, not everyone who does these things is fake.
No, but some of them are well intentioned. But I've had so many that I've had that never came true. None of them, none of their predictions were accurate. So
Skype is having an aneurysm.
Again.
Well, that's true. What some people do, because readers aren't supposed to actually read for themselves, a lot of people don't know that, is they will go to another psychic, because you can't be objective for your own reading. And you're supposed to tell somebody, I'm a psychic. Not a psychic, I'm also a reader. And one of the things that if they're not a real reader that they'll tell you is, I don't read for other readers. Because a reader's going to be able to pick up on you being full of it.
Yeah.
Knock, knock, knock.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
He wants us.
He's returned from the other side.
I'm back from the light.
You've broken on through from the other side.
So
Did you say Caroline?
Obviously, he heard us. We just couldn't hear him.
It's still the same over there. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. So even, nothing changes even in death.
So I actually have what I hope is a good question. I've been holding on to specifically because I thought this is a question best once you've told your story. Yeah. So, for what you're saying, this spirit reached out and touched you, if you will, pretty hard.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily certainly with this spirit, because I agree from what you've said. I think you helped it move on. Wherever it is, it's in the next phase, as it were. But have you been contacted by any other spirits since?
Yeah, but nothing at all like that in terms of scope or impact, and
I would hope not.
You
Just
hope not, right?
the level of activity. It's like somebody committed suicide. You don't really want to have it that bad again.
Right. About 3 months after the college haunting ended, I went with my family to Virginia, the state of Virginia, and they have a nice place there called Virginia Beach, and it's a beautiful place to go for vacations. And there's a place called Colonial Williamsburg, where they reconstructed.
Good
Yes, a beautiful place. And right before I had been there, they had a meeting with I think they're called the G8. It was like Reagan, Thatcher, Mitterrand.
Oh, yeah, the
Cole,
G8 summit. Yeah.
Yes, and so my mom knew the history, so she brought me to the place where they stood and they're talking, and she wanted me to stand and pose for a picture. And so I told my mom, sure, I'll stand for a picture. And as I stood there, I heard this grandfather clock, which I couldn't see, ring loudly 3 times, as though it was almost in the bell itself. And I made a face. What's the matter? I'm like, Then a woman ran past me, like with her hair on fire. I'm like, what the heck? So I took a picture, click, and there I am, like, hey, geez. But again, back then, you didn't see what happened right away. And so I told my mom that I heard these bells, and there was this fire lady. She's like, okay. You know what I mean? Go back to the hotel and lay down. When we got the pictures back, about a month later, there I am, standing all nervous with like a forced smile on my face, and you see three clock faces, 3 in the air, all at 3 o'clock, like I heard. And on that side of the picture, there's a lady running past and her hair's on fire. And my mom's like,
good heavens.
Oh my gosh. And so at that point in time, my parents people began to realize, okay, this is something that I can do. The question is, how do you do it without losing control? And how do you do it without people thinking you're weird or really cool? And I had just been bred the ghost boy. I wanted all that to end. So I tried to put everything away in a box for a long time. Not that it's a healthy decision to make, but I thought I had to do that just to get my feet grounded again.
So that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I can send you the picture if you want at some point in time. But
I'd love to see this.
Kevin wants to see that for sure.
I want to show it to Brian and see how he reacts.
Yeah, I want to see the woman with her hair on fire. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing, you know. And again, I didn't want this to happen. I didn't look for this to happen. I wish that things I wanted to happen would happen more often, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't choose this. This chose you.
Right. And that happens in life, right?
Sometimes? Oh, yes, very much.
You know, and it took me a long time to embrace it, but now I'm like, well, see, now because I go places, as you know, and I speak and I get invited to talk and things, a lot of times they'll pay my way. And if they say to me, listen, will you go on a ghost hunt? I'm like, ugh. But if they're paying the hotel room and a speaking fee, I can't say no because they're investing in me. So when they ask, I will go on an investigation with people in different places. But I usually don't, just because I'm afraid something bad happen, and I don't want to be the cause of anything happening poorly. But again, that's just my impression of things, and it could be just totally, wrong. But
see, I think you and Kevin and a couple of others should get together and sort of form like the Paranormal Justice League or something. Like you guys could all have your different powers and be awesome. Be like
every time I'm Aquaman, every time the guy with the Aquaman with the green tights, what is that about?
You don't have to be Aquaman.
He's kind of. Have you seen the new movie? He's actually pretty badass.
Yeah, now he's cool. Yeah, now he's cool. I'm too old to play him. He's cool.
But you guys could be the real Ghostbusters.
You could be like Superman. How's that?
You could be the real Ghostbusters.
Can I be Silver Surfer?
Yes.
Sure. Why not?
I got a cool spaceport and have a power cosmic. Yes, please.
I think it's the one without any psychic powers. I'm Batman.
Yeah, you get to be the.
I'm the guy who just knows stuff. I know and has gadgets. I don't have any psychic powers.
Yeah. There we go.
And you're Silver Surfer.
No, Kevin, you would be Doctor Strange. Let's be honest.
I don't have the.
He's not the
magical chops.
Jordan would be Doctor Strange.
He didn't have it initially. That was something that came far later.
Arthur would be Doctor Strange. We bring in Arthur for Doctor. See, if Kevin's Batman, that makes me probably Robin, which is even sadder. I'm wearing the little like green speedos and the cape.
It was red. It was green tights and it was a red one piece.
No, but his bottom was usually in most of the animated is green.
Yeah, wasn't he green?
It's like a green speedo.
No,
and he had the little green elf shoes.
As somebody who's actually cosplayed the original.
Okay.
Well, and there's just been a number of adaptations.
Yeah, I'm even more useless than Robin. I don't even have the knowledge or the gadgets. So
well, you know vampire folklore.
Yeah, so I'm literally like, I'm that guy that's sort of an honorary member of the team, and everybody's sort of like, yeah,
So that makes you Alfred.
Yeah, you're good, bro.
No, I'm thinking he's like those two kids from Super Friends that sort of
the Wonder Twins.
hung around. No, not the Wonder Twins. The two that had like no superpowers and just hung around anyway.
Wow.
Which I was gonna say, that's why everybody like has this bad association with Aquaman. It's really just Super Friends, and that's
it was the fault of Super Friends. They ruined Aquaman for all.
But if you look at like Smallville or Justice League, he is actually. It's like no. He's got super speed, super strength, water bending powers. He's actually and he can talk to sea life. It's like he can talk to flounders, but he can also talk to like a great white shark.
Yeah, and additionally, he effectively owns the planet.
Plus the little ecosystem that he has for what he has, and especially with the depths that his people have to go literally into, like physically, he can withstand a lot of pressure, which means he can also take a beating a lot better than they portray him to.
Oh yeah,
he's one of the few people Earth-born, DC-wise, I believe, that can actually take a beating anywhere close to what Superman can while still on Earth.
I'm also just thinking of there's the episode of Justice League Unlimited where they go toe-to-toe against Cthulhu. And the original team that's trying to fight Cthulhu before the rest of the league gets involved is Aquaman, Dr. Fate, and Solomon Grundy. It's like, okay, it's bloody Cthulhu, but Aquaman was seriously a contender in that fight.
Yeah, I want to know what the deal is with Solomon Grundy. I mean, basically, he's just a strong zombie. There isn't anything all that special about him.
And a slightly intelligent zombie.
Slightly being the word. He's generally portrayed as being like...
To be fair, he doesn't have to breathe, ergo he would be perfect for underwater battle.
Well, sure, but...
Well, no, in that case, it's
again,
specifically because basically...
He's not that awesome.
The reason he was involved in that fight was the way that he was raised... tied to the old one, so the magic that was animating him gave him a degree of power in a fight with Cthulhu. That was the reason he was in that particular fight.
Okay.
And Dr. Fate's like the magical powerhouse.
All right. So anyway, we've now officially
we've all nerded out.
We've gone from paranormal to straight geek.
Because we're apparently now the Justice League. Or are we just the Super Friends?
Super Friends.
The Super Friends of the Paranormal.
Para-Friends.
Actually, no. See, if
the Paranet. You guys are the Paranet.
The Justice League, I'm going to stand over here and be the Phantom Stranger, because nobody sees me half the time anyway, and I disappear faster than anybody can catch me.
Yeah, Paranet from Dresden Files. That's a little more accurate.
Well, no, the Phantom Stranger is one of the most obscure characters. He's actually a member of the Justice League.
But nobody remembers it.
You only see him in like 2 arcs with the Justice League. That's canon, and he is actually a member. And he pretty much said, "I don't want this. Go away." And he's like, "I'm going off to do my own thing. Y'all can go hang." Was essentially his attitude, and he actually has a decent crossover. Into Neil Gaiman's Sandman, because you actually see him have an interaction with Cain and Abel.
All right. Well, wow, that was fascinating.
Totally unrelated.
Completely unrelated to our guest or topic.
Yeah, Chris, welcome to the nature of the show. We like our tangents.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Martian Manhunter, Red Tornado.
Yeah. This is like And honestly, this is one of our better behaved nights.
It really is.
When we're on with like a writer or somebody, we've gone way
completely.
We've gone way into Geekville. Yeah, we actually managed to go almost like an hour and a half, 2 hours without any like geek references or mentions. We were on topic.
Geekville, next place to visit.
Yes, we were on topic for
I'm also
a record.
Just thinking, I want to get Chris in touch with Jeff and see if Jeff would be interested in having you.
Oh, absolutely.
We have a good friend who does steampunk and goth type events, and I'm thinking he would probably be very interested in having you come talk.
Yeah, pretty much in northern Jersey, so not too far for you.
No, I'm about 20 miles from the Jersey border, so.
Yeah, you're up in New York, yes?
Yes, yep.
Cool.
Well, he also does 4 events that two of which you get involved with. The other one I keep meaning to, and I've been too busy. In New York, in Blackthorn Resort up in the Catskills.
Right. That's actually past me, so
that's way New York.
Yeah. It's a nice event, and all things considered, it's 3-day event, beautiful resort, $150 for the whole event, and
Meals included. It was
and that's
actually
like
very
meals in
cool.
your hotel room and everything for 3 days. It's
Yeah.
a pretty nice deal.
And for a presenter, you
Yeah.
can get in for free.
And Jeff
so.
will, yeah. And like, I'll get in touch with Jeff and have Jeff get in touch with you. I like taking people I know are going to be worth listening to and setting them up like this because
absolutely
makes Jeff happy. I'm happy. You're happy. Everybody wins.
Well, you connect cool people with cool people, and good things happen.
Exactly.
So then, but do I not, or do I mentionally talk about the color of Robin's bottom?
At a Jeff event, totally talk
That
about
is-
the color.
yeah, that is up to you. That is
Do
your
whatever you
discretion.
want.
You'll fit in just fine.
Yeah, you'd love it. There's some fun people there. Yeah, so I guess I don't know. It's getting close to 9 o'clock. I think we might want to.
It's probably sorry to say
I'm
because this
getting
has been a
hungry.
really great time.
Yeah, but it has been
we're
really
getting a bit hungry and it's getting on toward late, so it's probably time to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yes.
Actually, I was going to say,
thank
I
you
don't
very
think
much.
he actually completed his story.
No, he did.
He did.
He
He
got to the good stuff.
So
If you want to see the rest, watch the movie.
But he did get to talking in the spirit leaving.
Yeah.
So
is there anything else you wanted to plug? Any appearances coming up for you in the near future?
books, appearances. Don't you have a radio show going now?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm bad at this, but yes. There's a radio show that myself and Phil Casey, who I believe you met at the Paranormal Convention, do. It's on WGOG Radio. It's Clearwater, Florida. That's on Mondays from 8 to 10, and we try to interview different people and movie stars, authors,
Very cool.
athletes, etc. So I enjoy that.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be a guest if you want.
Absolutely. Bring your costume.
Both of us anytime.
I'm not dressing up as Rob.
If
This
he doesn't
weekend,
know what
I'll
he
be at
did,
one of my favorite events of all time. It's called the Bizarre Haunted Flea Market.
Do you know
It's
the
on
owner of the
Best Days,
station?
Long Island. What's that?
My station owner is asking if you know the owner of KGO of the station that you do the show at.
That's Todd Bates, and he has the studio, and he has John Tobin on there, and Ken Hobson. I love doing the show. You know, it's a fun thing for me to meet people without leaving my
We'll
house.
network on that.
Yeah, we'll connect everybody together off
yeah.
screen. But
Yeah,
you
it's a
were
nice thing.
saying
But
about your
this weekend, I'll be on Long Island at a great event with people who made Celebrity Deathmatch and the Cowardly Dog and
Oh,
things like
that's
that.
fantastic.
This weekend, that's in Bethpage. You can look that up at the Bizarre Haunted Flea Market. It's on the internet and also on Facebook. If people would like to see the sci-fi show, if they go to my website, it's free that way. Otherwise, to pay Netflix or Hulu, don't do that.
Cool.
If you go to my actual page, and my actual page is DiCesare, DICESARE.webs.com. And that site has the haunting history on there, some EVPs, some photographs of the priests and things, and the multimedia section. It has the sci-fi show for free, as well as other episodes on there.
Oh, fantastic.
Also, it's a cool thing, right? And also, under books and DVDs, that's where they can get the book that I wrote or that Tim Shaw wrote, if they want. And I'm on Facebook. So, I like to talk to people. I like reaching out. So please say hello. I would love that.
Sure.
Yeah, I really gotta look up this event you're going to because I personally love Courage the Cowardly Dog. It was one of the shows I really grew up on.
And I loved Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yeah.
I would go there just to see that. But that sounds good.
So, folks, I also want to give everybody an update on what's going on with the show. Next week, we'll be having Chris Moon on. If you guys remember a while back, we had the guest who wasn't able to make it. That would be Chris. We're going to be talking about the Ghost Box.
So, from Ghost Boy to Ghost Box.
It's a really interesting piece of paranormal equipment that I've actually had a chance to work with. And Chris knew the original owner, as well as writing the book Ghost Box. The week after that, we'll have Chuck Lemon. I'm mispronouncing his name. But he's a fellow paranormal investigator, and he's a Reiki practitioner who does crystal singing bowls. Chris, he was actually the guy who was doing the bowls at the Pararex. If you recall.
Chuck, great guy. Yeah, he's a real nice person. In fact, I think he's on my show in a few weeks. So great guy.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy, and he's actually going to come in and bring him. So I'm quite excited to see what he's got
We'll have
to
our
show
first
us.
live guest.
And then the week after that, we're going to have Matt Swain on, who wrote the book The Ghosts of Country Music, about hauntings of famous country music stars who were haunted or who are now haunting other people. I've actually had a chance to talk to him before on my YouTube channel, and I'm in the process of reading his book. I should have it done by the time we have him on. He's a real nice guy. He's got some really cool stories, and we can finally resolve everyone's great question of, is Elvis really dead?
That Conway Twitty just won't leave me alone.
But Chris, thank you again. You're definitely welcome to come back, and we'll schedule you again sometime in the near future.
Yeah, look forward to it.
I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your support, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
And likewise, it's an absolute pleasure. That's it for us tonight, folks. Thank you so much. Have a good night, and God bless.
Yeah, you guys went to their thing. John, you went to do it?